Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of Wick TV. Gang, we have come to you on this most auspicious of occasions to discuss the new Speaker of the House. After a contentious and torrid ousting of the original one, McCarthy, and then a few days of Republicans fighting back and forth amongst themselves, the cream has risen to the top, as I say. Um, and we have a new Speaker of the House. Now, there are some issues that we have to go over about him. And we're going to discuss that today. But the primary question we're going to be asking is this good? Is the new speaker better than the old one? Is he going to do well for the country, or is he a curse? And what is he letting his son monitor? We're going to talk about all of that. It's going to be great. We've got people from across the spectrum to discuss this issue. And I want to start with our friend, party animal himself, Gibbs. Go ahead.
So yeah, I think this is an excellent choice for the speaker role. I'm very happy that he got elected. Uh, he's uh, he's a very as a you know Republican. I don't really fall in the religious category, but it is good to see someone that holds their principles so dear and takes those principles so dear to their heart, like so seriously in office. And it's very good. And I know that people are going to argue and say that this porn tracking software is very weird or whatever out here in meme land on Twitch, but it's a very common thing within religious communities to have this sort of software, and it's really just another form of accountability. And if you have a problem with accountability, then I have questions about you in general as a person. So.
Okay, thanks for being here. We'll see how it goes. Staxiums, what you got?
So there are a lot of different ways we can take this. So I don't know if I'm fully prepared on the avenue that we're specifically going to go. First thing I'm going to say about the porn thing, I grew up in a very like hyper religious conservative community. I grew up Mormon. I'm honestly shocked that people are shocked that this is how a lot of conservatives act about porn and having like monitoring a 17-year-old's porn access and then having the 17-year-old monitor them. Honestly, doesn't sound that surprising. I will say it doesn't bode exactly well for the Hillary Clinton emails crowd that they have a software tracking everything that a Speaker of the House, arguably one of the most important positions in the country, monitoring the record. But we can talk about Mike Johnson's record. His first move as Speaker was to cut the IRS, literally the only revenue positive department in the government. Again, this is the party of fiscal responsibility. Keep that in mind. But see, going down this line of thinking shows more about how Republicans are bad and not specifically Mike Johnson. So let's talk specifically about the Speaker. I think his biggest proof that he is a bad Speaker of the House is that he is the current Speaker of the House. The Freedom Caucus have shown their main demands on being a Speaker is one, be unable to raise the debt ceiling, two, default on the fiat global currency, and three, do not pass basic spending legislation. Kevin McCarthy failed at those demands, and he was willing to work bipartisanly to at least continue their job. It is really hard to stress how low the bar here is for Republicans. And the bar right now is the floor. Unfortunately, the Freedom Caucus's guy, Mike Johnson, won't be there to meet it. That's all for me.
Okay. Thanks for bringing us to that. And with that, let's go to average debate enjoyer. What you got for us?
All right, again, 7 syllables is a lot. Just use Tyler for this evening or forever. Just forever. We're all friends here. So I am going to define good a little bit differently than just whether I like his policies or not. I'm going to talk more from the perspective of his effectiveness as the speaker, if he'd be good at the job in particular and what the job itself entails. I think he is a massive step down from McCarthy in terms of his talent. I think you give McCarthy 10 more years and he could be better than Nancy Pelosi at the job. He was a natural for it, a natural fit, because he didn't really believe in anything. He just wanted to make deals. I think this guy is a step down because he's a little more ideological driven, but I look through his policies over the last 8, 9 years since he got into office, and he doesn't seem to be anything different than your just cookie cutter pro USA religious conservative. He's not really like crazy on anything. So I don't know. I don't think he has the talent for it, but we'll see.
Okay, thanks for being here. We'll see how it goes. Next up, Vivian. Go ahead.
So I'm a little disappointed. When I met Gibbs for the first time, he told me he was a moderate Republican. I'm
I'm not.
kind of I'm kind of I'm kind of sad to hear him cheerleading for this fucking lunatic. But it is what it is. I'm sure me and Gibbs will butt heads in future on numerous things. Um, it is true that conservative Christians do a lot of fucking weird shit with kids. Yeah. The GOP is the pedo party after all. And Christians are well renowned for doing really dodgy fucking shit with kids all the fucking time. I think sharing your porn, sharing what porn you're looking at with your kids really fucked up. I don't actually think that it's likely to be a safety risk, because I don't think that those apps work that way. I'm pretty sure it's just that they have like a list of sites and stuff, and if you go near any of them, then it like flags it, but it's all like just on the phone basically, or on the network. um, I, 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 I don't agree that McCarthy didn't believe in anything. I think McCarthy held really fast to the few values that he had. I think that obviously he was a big Trump ally and everything. But like he wanted to at least keep the fucking house running, right? Which is ultimately one of the things that got him booted. Um, so, and I do think that Johnson is a fucking lunatic. I think that obviously the things that we've heard that he said about LGBT people in particular, that's probably something that I'll end up harping on about a lot during this conversation, um, are just fucking off the wall, frankly. Wanting to make gay sex illegal. Like, what kind of fucking nut job in 2023? It still holds these kind of beliefs. A significant amount of conservative Christians in the United States. Is he? Is he? Is he? Is it bad for the United States that he's become Keeper of the House? I see it as the continued takeover of the Grand Old Party by the Freedom Caucus and the extreme right. I think that this is probably the best possible outcome for Matt Gaetz in the end. This is probably, an ideal candidate, right? Maybe not the ideal candidate, but an ideal candidate for Matt Gaetz. And I think, although it's just another thing in a long line of things signifying the rightward shift of the GOP, it's a milestone that should be noted and in the radicalization of the party.
Yeah, we'll get into it as we go, right? We're going to talk about whether or not the Freedom Party has hijacked the GOP, but that will be part of the open discussion. We have one more person to go before we get into it, and that is our resident libertarian, 𝕵𝖎𝖎.
Yeah, am I audible? Do I sound okay?
Yeah, you're fine. Go ahead.
Wonderful.
Your time to shine.
I do think it's interesting the sort of conciliatory nature towards McCarthy now that people seem to be saying, not only on this panel, but generally speaking, given that it was the Democrats who booted McCarthy in the first place, right? I mean, Gaetz could not have done that without a unified Democratic Party that helped them get rid of McCarthy because McCarthy worked with the Democrats. I think it demonstrates how trustworthy they really are, that if you try working with them, they will go on to destroy you if they have the opportunity to, because you worked with them, which is exactly what happened. In terms of Mike Johnson as a candidate, I actually think he's a pretty cookie cutter, as was said. I mean, when you look at his voting record, there's some good stuff there, right? He voted to stand with Israel. He condemned socialism, condemned the Chinese Communist Party, prevented public buildings like schools being used to house illegal immigrants. He incentivized states to pursue fraudulent payments of unemployment. He prohibited federal employees from censoring speech, or voted to prohibit federal employees from censoring speech while acting in an official capacity. He voted to defend the Second Amendment. I mean, really just, again, pretty inline stuff that we would expect. Once he became speaker, he appears to have a more sort of deficit hawk financial perspective in terms of, yeah, we'll potentially fund certain things, but we're looking for cuts as well. Generally speaking, I think that's a great idea. I would like to see that applied with most government spending if we could. So in addition to that, Mike Johnson is actually pretty well liked by both wings, by both the Republicans and the Democrats, just from a personal level, from what I understand. Maybe it's just that Southern politeness, who knows? But the fact that he's well liked and the fact that he is a little bit more ideological, I think that is probably a step up from McCarthy, in my opinion.
Okay, and with that, let's get into it. And I guess the first question, right, that was noted by both Vivian and Staxiums here, right? Is Johnson's election indicative of a dire straits within the Republican Party? Let's talk about that, and then we could just open it up normally to everything else. But go ahead, floor's open.
I think I'll respond first to something that Lactoid said. Basically that Dems turned against someone who they were willing to work with. And I just want to say explicitly what happened was that after the vote to temporarily increase the debt spending limit, McCarthy said, and after Gates threatened to essentially expel McCarthy said explicitly on CNN, hey, I'm not willing to work with any Democrat. And he didn't go to any Democrat specifically who was to basically sort of stabilize his position at all. He refused to work with any of them. I don't think that it's the Democrats' responsibility to not let the Republicans tear themselves to pieces. And if they can't get the votes together, I don't know why that's the fault of the minority party.
Yeah, this isn't the Republicans tearing themselves to pieces, right? This is them voting in Mike Johnson, right? They replaced McCarthy with Mike Johnson. This is
right,
the end result.
After 30 rounds of
you're
voting
right.
for it. Like
yes, you're right. You're right. And so yes, there was some like yelling and there was some rounds of voting, but the end result was Mike Johnson, right? The Republican Party still has the numbers that they do, and now they have Mike Johnson. Specifically because McCarthy was willing to extend government funding, that's why Gates tried to get rid of him, and the Democrats all supported that despite being in favor of continuing to fund the government. So yes, it was McCarthy working with the Democrats for that time period that got him canned.
I don't understand why it's so. One thing that we're going to have to acknowledge. One, there's I think a 4-person majority lead currently by the Republicans in the House. They really have to get their shit together and make sure that they are completely aligned as a party. And that did not show itself at all during the entire McCarthy era. Republicans couldn't get together to vote really for any specific piece of legislation, and everything was torn apart by the Freedom Caucus. Do you disagree with that assertion? What was your name, Tyler?
Yeah, absolutely. I got the voting record pulled. They put a lot of legislation through between 2020 and 2023 before Johnson was gone. It looks like almost 150 bills, and these are major bills.
Wait, sorry, McCarthy wasn't speaker. No. You said 2020 to 2023. McCarthy was only. No. McCarthy was only speaker from 2022 to 20. Oh, sorry.
Just 2023. They put out a ton of legislation. So I would say that I'd say this ideological capture thing. How do we know Matt Gaetz isn't going to try to vote Mike Johnson out in 2 weeks?
No, I think that's my point. Is that I don't know.
And the Dems are going to side with him too.
Well, let's let Staxiums go. Go ahead.
No, I don't get this. That it's somehow the minority party's responsibility. Of course, the minority party. If the majority party is looking to oust a specific member and they meet that half threshold, of course they are going to let the majority party tear itself to pieces. That looks awful for Republicans. This is Republicans' fault. And the McCarthy and Johnson are not willing to work bipartisanly to keep the government afloat. I have a question. I'm just curious, sort of, where everyone's perspective is. Do we believe that the government's gonna shut down when the temporary? I think it's in 2 weeks that the specific budget is going to come across. Do you think that Mike Johnson is going to shut down the entire government? And if he does, is that not an indictment on his ability as a speaker and the Republican Party writ large?
I mean, the first thing he did once he got put in there, he was, "Hey, we're gonna work on this budget." That's literally what he said the first.
No,
day.
he cut the IRS. That's the only department that makes revenue in the government. I don't get this. I don't get this idea.
Hold on. He didn't cut it. He removed the increase, right? He removed part of the increase that was planned.
Sorry, I feel like that's a little quibbling. I think we understand.
Yeah,
what I'm
it's
trying
not
to say.
quibbling, right? Because the whole bunch of money being like now slated to go to the IRS, and he's saying yes, if you want to send this to Ukraine, you can, but we're not going to like just raise the spending level regardless.
Not only that, he said he's going to start making draft. This is one of the first things he did was he said we're going to make drastic changes to Social Security and Medicare.
Sure.
So these are things that he's already said he's going to do, like first day one in office. So it's pretty
But
clear.
I really want to
first
emphasize
thing he wants to do.
I understand that cutting Social Security and Medicaid is fiscal responsibility. I mean, I disagree with it in principle, but I of course agree that we spend a large amount of money on Social Security and Medicaid. However, going after the IRS, the only department where you fund it and you get more on your investment than any other department, you see immediate tangible goals. And we saw that too. Like I just don't understand this perception.
The idea that you want to increase power for the IRS is just disgusting to me.
That money doesn't come from nowhere.
Yeah, like taxation theft. Like, let's just start with that. I mean,
can we look
wait,
at
hold on. Let's bypass this. We're talking about the government. Okay.
I want to respond to something that was said before about the Democrats, right?
No, you want to check out silly sound bites like taxation is theft and whatnot. Like the point was right that if the Conservatives are the party of fiscal responsibility, then cutting the IRS is a stupid fucking thing to do. Right? It runs counter to what they. I don't. It's not opinion. It's fucking fact. You know what? I'm an anarchist. I'm not big on fucking taxation either. Okay, but like the IRS is how the government gets money. Like it's how they have more money.
They don't need to be taking more money from us. What we need to be doing.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah, that's what we need to be.
You guys are saying things that aren't true. There's a much easier way for the government to get money than to tax people. They can print it. They're in charge of that. So no, the only way the government gets money is not the IRS. They also get revenue from other.
You're aware of what inflation is. Right?
I'm not gonna.
Yes.
I don't even.
We all see that as silly, right? Like I'm not.
No, we all know what happened in Germany, right?
Like that all being said, we're talking about this
or in America during the pandemic.
No, for sure. We climbed out of one of the biggest recessions of all time. So I don't know what your criticism of is financial.
And we're still not
at that rate. Wait, hold on. At that specific rate that we've seen, like the 2008 recession took us like 6 years to climb out of. Yeah. This one took like a few months. It was insane.
It was the same. That being said, let me go back to Mike Johnson really quick, cutting the IRS, because you're leaving the second half of that bill out, which is he cut. I went $14.3 billion from the IRS to put that money into helping Israel. So he appropriated it. He didn't cut it.
I mean,
wait, hold on. That's more of an argument against fiscal responsibility.
Yeah, how is that?
Because that money just went elsewhere. That doesn't go into the taxpayers' money. It goes to Israel instead of funding the government.
Sending it to like fiscal responsibility into funding it to.
This is what it's like. Hey, stop. Let's give it to Vivian. Right, let's give it to Vivian, and then I see Staxiums, and then you can all respond after they're done. Vivian, Staxiums, and then I'll let the other people respond. Go ahead.
I mean, sure, sending it to Israel to satisfy your rabid conservative Christian fucking conspiracist dominionist base doesn't really help you much in terms of like fiscally, does it? Like, how the fuck does that help the United States in any tangible fucking way? It doesn't.
All right, Staxiums, you want to go?
Yeah, for sure.
I don't care to address that.
No, okay. So what I will say is
I thought you were talking about fiscal responsibility. Why are you laughing about it? Like
your framing of Israel and giving them funding after they were attacked by terrorists. That's why
this isn't an Israel debate. I'm gonna nip that in the bud. We could talk about Israel another day, but right now we're talking about the Speaker of the House.
They have enough cluster bombs and white phosphorus to kill as many kids as they want.
I'm nipping this. I'm nipping this in the bud. Vivian, please don't encourage it. Just stick to the fiscal responsibility. Let's go.
Is that my cue or?
Yeah, go. Someone, please. Anything?
No, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, I'll jump in. Okay, so I genuinely do not understand this argument because like it seems like it just defaults back into taxation is theft, which you can argue that as much as you want, but that just like you're basically just smoke screening every issue that comes to the government, and you can just go, taxation is theft. This money shouldn't be here anyway. Okay, well we're in this pickle. Whether like you can say this is a problem or not, but we are basically arguing currently on the bill of the credit card and whether or not it needs to be paid by just saying we need to cut expenses. I get that cutting expenses should be a priority. We should talk about budgetary restrictions. That's an interesting debate that I'd love to get into, okay? But currently, we're talking about, should we make enough money? Should we suddenly just lose our jobs? Because that's the only way that we make money. The IRS, taxation is the only way, mostly 95%, I would guess, of the revenue comes specifically from the IRS through taxation. And like, it just feels so deranged that that Republicans, the party of fiscal responsibility, is uninterested in keeping the IRS afloat, which is the only place that we can get that money. I don't get it. I legitimately don't get it. If you guys could explain it to me, I would really appreciate it.
So it's twofold. One, first of all, when we say taxation is theft, it's because you said, oh, it's a smokescreen and all that. Let me tell you why that's not true. First of all, the reason why we should be talking about people losing their jobs and whatnot is because the goal is smaller government as a
First, unemployment is at an all-time low. So like, don't pull this shit about.
Good. So it's an all-time low. Good. Then we should be able to afford to cut some jobs in the government. Secondly, you're talking about funding. They're not funding it by finding money. They're funding it by taking on more debt that's going to be paid back by the American taxpayer. That's how they're funding it. So for you to sit here and go, oh, well, we're going to cut the IRS. Well, the IRS doesn't need more people. You know what needs more? It needs more job firings. That's what we need in the government.
I don't wait. That didn't
work for the government. We need these organizations restructured. We need wholesale, just whatever done. So to sit here and tell me, oh, we can't find money. Well, maybe we should instead cut some of this frivolous spending, and that's what we can use to fund stuff instead of taxing the American taxpayer more and auditing them for using their Cash App for $600. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely. How can you even justify that?
Lactoid, could you translate that for me and just remove all the buzzwords for me? Because I legitimately, that felt just like a cluster of just like.
Oh God.
All that felt like.
No, it wasn't. It's everything Gibbs said was just base as fuck, right? Specifically, the part that he said that was base as fuck was this is the IRS taking on more debt and then paying it off with the U.S. taxpayers' dollars, because that's what this is. That is what is going to happen.
It's more
right?
money. It's more money.
I get it. So financial responsibility. Yeah. I understand that you could extort more money if you get empower the IRS to infinity and beyond. We could put an IRS agent in every household and maximize the amount of fucking money that we're extracting. Okay. Now, financial responsibility is an important element here, and I think cutting expenses is what we have to do. But that doesn't mean that we're gonna do anything to achieve a completely net balance on the fucking balance sheet, right? Especially if it means, again, empowering the IRS with more money that they're going to use to pursue Americans to take more of their money. It's bizarre.
Okay, so here's how I feel about this argument. It really feels again, you guys, the Republicans are obsessed with getting business owners into the government because they understand how a budget works. Okay, let's think from a business owner perspective. I agree. Okay, let's think of a business owner expenses from their perspective, okay? Let's imagine someone who works at a bakery or something. They're kind of struggling to make rent a little bit, okay? Things are getting a little tight. And then the person's like, oh, wait, hold on. I can invest into a new business that I know, I have charts, I have graphs, I have so much information that this is guaranteed to make more money. And this will eventually pay itself off. I can put this place in this specific place and I can pay off the rent, and then the other person just gets let's say they're in a relationship or something, and the boyfriend's just screaming at her don't you understand, we can't afford to get a new house, we're struggling to pay the bills right now. It's this is our form of revenue. I don't it's basic businesses is that investing sometimes makes you a profit, and sometimes going negative is the way to go positive. And the IRS is the perfect example of that, as is most businesses that have steady grounds. I don't understand this perspective.
So I think you do understand it, right? Okay. I do think you understand it, right? Okay. Because there's really not that much to understand, which is it's not I'm going to open up a new business. It's I'm sitting in front of my exactly, right? I'm sitting at my dining room table. I'm going through my balance sheet, and I'm coming up short $500. So I look over at my neighbor's car, and I'm like, well, I could take that.
Huh? I mean, no, because this money.
I could take that and then I can make up that shortfall right there.
No, because the IRS
buying so much shit.
Nobody was proposing.
Go to Viv.
Yeah, nobody was proposing new rules for the IRS so that they could take more things than they currently take. It's just making the institution run. But okay, not in the context of that fucking bill, right? funding the IRS, like getting rid of that funding, isn't going to mean that they're going to like take any less.
Is there ways that I could like show graphs
Of
or
course
something
it
like
is.
that?
Can I jump in? here real
Maybe I
quick?
could throw someone into some in a chat.
No, what I mean
Yeah,
is
go ahead, Tyler.
you'll still be you still have to pay, technically have to pay the same amount of taxes. They just won't be able to do their job as well, so they won't collect as much.
To Viv's point,
you're arguing like I mean all three of you at this point, I think, on the other side of this issue seem to be really dead set against taxation, at least to some degree. Okay, my bad. Sorry, not you, but Lactoid and Gibbs then, right? Gibbs said taxation is theft. Lactoid referred to it as extortion, right? This isn't an argument about like whether or not you like taxation, right? I understand you have your own like political and philosophical views about taxation, but it's very, very simple. I do too, right? Like I would like there to be less taxation. I think a lot of the things that we're taxed for are fucking bullshit here in the United Kingdom, and a lot of the things that you're taxed for in the US are fucking bullshit, right? But it is a fact that if you want the government to run well and to be able to afford to do the things that you want it to do, like sending money to Israel to bomb children to death, right? Then they have to get that fucking money from somewhere. And the place that they're getting that money from, most of it, 95% of it, as we said earlier, is from taxes from the IRS. So you want the IRS to work well, right? You might want it to tax less things, okay? And you can do that in legislation, but you want the IRS to work well. You don't want to fucking conk it out so that because
Of course you can.
Because, for example, right? What if they overtax you? What if they take more than they should do, right? And they're an underfunded department, and you have to send back your fucking tax return and be like, "Hey, I've been taxed too fucking much," or what have you, right? What do you expect? Like, if the department's not working
what the increase,
as well,
right? That's not what the increase is like proposed, though, right? Like, I read through the IRS proposal. Like, a lot of it is hiring new workforce specifically to audit people. Some of it is diversity and equity and inclusion policies to diversify their workforce so they can get more minorities involved, less white people.
Not those
Absolutely. They emphasize that.
Oh,
Now,
no,
a chapter, I think it was like chapter 6. They really emphasize that.
Okay, first off,
it's like the thing is, again,
spending
yes, when you
billions down the drain.
When you dislike taxes, right? When you think there's like a moral qualm here, of course you could starve the beast. Of course you can absolutely
advocate a ton of white phosphorus to drop on girls and babies. How can we spend it on diversity?
The increase, like we're not talking about cutting the IRS, right? We're literally talking about like some of the increased funding that they're slated to receive, like. The proposal is let's take some of that money and send it to Israel if we want to send money to Israel. I kind of like the general proposition of anytime we're going to start like raising money or sending money somewhere that you guys want to send money, it's got to come from some kind of like spending cut. Otherwise, we're just going to keep on increasing shit forever.
I mean, but an IRS is not a spending cut.
Taxes have been cut massively. Like the amount of tax being paid by especially rich Americans in the United States now is fucking nothing compared to what it used to be. Right?
So,
as a percentage of income,
one thing you said real fast, just to address one thing. You said, if we want the government to do all these things, well, here's half the point: is we want the government to do less things. So if they're doing less things, then that means less money needs to be spent on these other things.
You're not cutting spending. You're cutting the revenue.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to
emphasize. Okay. I want to give it to someone who has bullied their way on here because he has been watching this, seething, coping, molding, and needing to come on and yell at Lactoid for a little bit. So, Josiah?
Well, I watched the first 5 minutes, and I saw Lactoid say something objectionable, so I said at the very end I wanted to pop in and yell at Lactoid. But so I have no idea what's happened in the past 20 minutes. I just want to say that Lactoid blaming McCarthy's predicament on Democrats is just absolutely stupid.
I'm going to keep on doing it.
Well, I understand because you're right wing, so of course you won't traffic in honesty. But the fact of the matter is that Kevin McCarthy he hoisted himself by his own petard. Who was the one who seeded the motion to vacate to Matt Gaetz? McCarthy, not Democrats. Who was the one who broke his word with President Biden after the May debt ceiling negotiation? McCarthy. Who was the one who reneged on his deal or the promise to send an impeachment inquiry for a full House vote? McCarthy. Who was the one? Yes. Yes.
None of that is relevant. The only two questions you have to ask. The only two questions you. The only two questions you have to ask yourself. A, why did McCarthy get impeached? And
he didn't get impeached.
Okay, I apologize. Why was McCarthy removed?
McCarthy was removed because he lied to both Republicans and Democrats.
McCarthy was removed because Gaetz got rid of him because
Gaetz
he I'm in the middle of talking because
I know, but you're saying nothing
made an agreement with the Democrats to continue funding for the government, and those same Democrats voted with Gaetz to remove him because he made a deal with them to keep the government going. It was because of his deal with the Democrats that the Democrats voted to remove him.
He made a deal with President Biden.
That is what happened.
It is not. He made a
little bit of mic
control. Now this is lying.
Wick's had to turn you down like 3 times already.
Yeah,
just
click it. Hold on. Housekeeping. Click it down just a little bit, Lactoid. Just a
You're blowing your fucking mic out as well. It's just a distortion.
He has to yell to compensate for his
volume, and you all said it was good. Okay, I will turn it down a little bit.
Just
We're yelling.
Well, I mean, it was good until you shoved your
back
into
to
the
Josiah.
Yeah,
why? Hey, stop it.
So
Josiah,
Lactoid.
why is what Lactoid said incorrect?
Because Kevin McCarthy did make a deal with President Biden. Lactoid said that's a lie. It's actually not true. In order to raise the debt ceiling, they made an agreement for the next fiscal year's budget. Biden held up his end. McCarthy did not hold up his end. He lied. The continuing resolution that McCarthy agreed to at the 11th hour was not honoring that deal. He played a game of chicken with Democrats, and the 11th hour said, fuck, okay, we'll at least just kick the can down the road for 45 days in a continuing resolution. That kept the government funding. He did not honor his deal with Biden. He did lie to the Democrats. And then, after passing the continuing resolution, the very next day, he blamed Democrats for the near government shutdown. This was 100% McCarthy's fault. He paid the consequences. And Democrats were right, and Democrats were right.
To be fair, Josiah, you are including context that doesn't support Lactoid's conclusion.
True.
Which is irrelevant. Because it doesn't support Lactoid's conclusion. So I think we need to focus on the evidence that supports Lactoid's conclusion.
Well, then we'll
okay. So again. So the question is the continuing resolution. Did McCarthy make a deal on the continuing resolution with the Democrats? Yes or no?
Yes. Did McCarthy make a deal with Biden? I answered your question.
No. This is what happens. I understand. I just listened to you talk for how fucking long. I asked a very simple question.
You asked me a question. I answered because I'm honest. Unlike a right winger like you. So how about you answer an honest question? Did McCarthy make a deal with Biden?
I don't know, and I don't care. Okay, because I'm specifically trying to ask.
Maybe you shouldn't comment on this.
Okay. One at a time. Lactoid asked you a question.
Thank you. So the answer was yes, right? The continuing resolution was made between McCarthy and the Democrats, okay? Then the second question is, was it true that McCarthy was removed because of that continuance?
Lactoid, I don't know. It's really not relevant. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to talk to the audience then, okay? Because
no, exactly. So
I'm in the middle of talking. I'm in the middle of talking.
To ignore context.
Wick, do you just let people come on and just like
this is going really well.
I would like to finish the sentence without somebody jumping.
Can we just get rid of Lactoid and keep this new guy? He seems more sane and reasonable.
Okay. Here's what's going to happen. Lactoid, you're going to finish your statement. Then you're going to get to finish your statement, Lactoid, I promise. And then I will keep them from interrupting you. But then what's going to happen is they're going to respond, and I'm going to keep you from interrupting them. Okay?
I have no problem with that.
I don't know. You've been interrupting Josiah. You've been interrupting Viv. You've been interrupting Staxium.
Only in response to this bullshit. Oh. You know that. You know that I'm perfectly
Go ahead,
Lactoid.
Give your statement.
Absolute. Jeez. Okay, calm down, guys. Okay. So the only things that we have to know here are what was the reason that McCarthy was removed. McCarthy was removed by Gaetz and a few other Republicans and all the Democrats Because McCarthy worked with those same Democrats on a continuing resolution. It was because he agreed with the Democrats and worked with the Democrats on the continuing resolution that they then turned on him and got rid of him. Now, it's crazy to say, well, McCarthy, like, oh, at least he was this, at least he was that. Now we have Mike Johnson. When all the Democrats all voted to remove McCarthy, what did they think was going to happen? It's fucking crazy.
Stacks, do you want to ask the question, the obvious question?
Well, I don't know if there's an obvious question, but he's clearly conflating two specific events. There's the first, which is Gates calling for a vote of no confidence, and the second, which is the vote of confidence. And there are critical events that happen in between those two. Yes, the first original call for the vote of confidence was Gates completely frustrated that McCarthy essentially went behind the Freedom Caucus's back to keep the government afloat. Okay? 100%. No one is disagreeing with that. The second is the vote of confidence and why Democrats all voted to get him expelled. And that is because events happened in between event 1 and event 2, which is McCarthy blamed Democrats for essentially the entire issue and said that he will refuse to work with any Democrat who comes to his door. What are Democrats supposed to do at that point?
So I was going to ask the obvious question. So Lactoid, and you guys can go back and play the clip. I'll give him a chance to rephrase because that was the dumbest fucking phrasing I've ever heard from somebody as smart as he is, which is that Democrats voted to kick McCarthy out because McCarthy worked with Democrats. Lactoid, think about that sentence very carefully. Why would Democrats vote to kick out a guy who was working with them?
Because they... Well, hold on. The answer is obvious, right? It helps them from a partisan perspective because it makes the Republicans look like they're infighting. That's the point.
Gotcha. So Democrats actually don't want to fund the government. They don't want to keep government afloat, and they actually want to empower somebody like Jim Jordan and Mike Johnson instead.
That's a huge reach.
Yeah, that's a massive reach. Of course they wanted to keep the government spending going, which is why they worked with McCarthy on the continuance, but they saw an opportunity to make the Republicans look bad and they couldn't fucking help themselves.
Or what about the alternative? Perhaps the alternative explanation is McCarthy repeatedly lied to them, lied to Biden, betrayed his word on the impeachment inquiry, then lied again about the government funding situation, then blamed Democrats for the government funding situation. Democrats realized they couldn't work with him in good faith, and then they allowed Gates to get rid of him as a result. Not because they wanted to punish him for working with them. Maybe that's the more likely explanation.
If I may interject before we go any further with this, I have a question for the panel, maybe to kind of get this kind of go down this thread a bit further. Is this whole episode evidence that Republicans are incapable of governing? Vivian, Josiah, Tyler, Gibbs, Stacks, and Lactoid. Go ahead.
Sure. I think, as I said, like right at the beginning, I think this whole debacle is a sign that the Freedom Caucus have far too much power within the GOP, right? Like, if it wasn't for the Freedom Caucus, like, all this shit wouldn't have happened with Kevin McCarthy in the first fucking place. If it wasn't for the Freedom Caucus, like, they wouldn't be removing Kevin McCarthy. If it wasn't for the Freedom Caucus, you wouldn't have Mike Johnson as a candidate for the Speaker of the House, right? So I mean, it's all it's all a complete mess because the Republican Party are currently in a civil war with total fucking nutjob lunatics, which is saying something because most of them are nutjob lunatics anyway. They've just managed to find a group of people much crazier than them. Yeah.
Josiah.
But
go on. If I didn't mean to cut you off.
They are willing to bring the government to an absolute halt for petty bullshit. Yeah. Sorry, carry on.
No, of course the Republican Party is incapable of governing. It's etched in their DNA. They're good for bullshit culture war takes and seizing power. They're really good at that. In terms of actually wielding power responsibly, they suck at it and have for the past 30 years.
Tyler.
They're absolutely fine. They've been switching off the government for the entire existence of the country. The country's absolutely fine. And this is all hyperbole.
Can you elaborate on that?
I mean, like if this rule was in place for Nancy Pelosi, you don't think one person would have taken advantage of for her as well? The fact that she squashed this rule from being effective against her kind of shows that she just kind of put down an iron fist. I think they called her the velvet glove on an iron fist or something like that. That was her nickname.
I mean, this was the only reason McCarthy got in as speaker in the first place is because they had that proviso. Like, there was, what was it, 15 rounds of voting or whatever?
Yeah,
like,
but
he literally had to say, hey guys, if you don't like me, you can kick me out at any time. Otherwise they wouldn't. Otherwise they'd still be in fucking deadlock over it.
Let me get my little spiel out as well. The reason why he was ousted is what Matt Gaetz said. It's kind of both of what you're alluding to. He was originally ousted because he worked with Democrats, yes. But the other reason Matt Gaetz wanted him out is that he felt lied to. He was told that instead of passing one giant omnibus budget, they were going to break that down to several different smaller bills, and he never did it. McCarthy's response was, well, you never came to me with a fucking bill. I'm not going to do all the work for you. I said we'd look into it. So I watched the whole debacle. I watched McCarthy's departure speech and all that. And it's speculated also that he wouldn't make Matt Gaetz's pedo accusations go away. Those are the reasons that Matt Gaetz kind of got rid of McCarthy. Mike Johnson is not much of a change in policy. I'll link it to 𝕵𝖎𝖎 as well, but I linked it in chat. I went through all of his policies for 9 years. He is a milk toast, cookie cutter Republican. If he's MAGA, it's because his PR person told him to be so to get elected.
Gibbs,
Sorry, you linked in what chat? If you're talking about the private chat, like the stuff the voting record you linked was from like 2013 to 2014 or something. It was it was fucking tiny.
It's got everything in there.
It's 12 pages.
Maybe I clicked on something different then, but
yeah, I did the same thing the first time.
Hey Gibbs, why is 𝕖𝒓 and Stacks?
I had to go look at the voting record myself because I clicked on your link and I was like,
actually, Wick, I don't think Stacks gave you. Best say Stacks. I don't think he gave an answer to that question you just asked.
I thought I was going to go like near last.
Yeah, I thought Stacks was our caboose in this train, right? He'll get there. He's gonna get there, right? But
this is the thing. Like, what
exactly is the question here again? Like, because I feel like.
Well, I'm just have you not been here for this entire back and forth between Lactoid and 𝕬𝖎𝖏, and we're also talking about whether or not that this is indicative of major problems that the Republican Party has with governance, on being unable to get their house in order, being unable to pass basic legislation, being unable to actually keep a Speaker of the House for any amount of time, right?
Yeah. So no, it's not a problem with the governments. I mean, what this is a lot of the pot calling the kettle black right here. I mean, we have the party whose presidential candidate is a dude that could die any day and probably has Alzheimer's. I mean, that's what we got, and they're sitting here and they want to have the gall and the gumption to sit here and say,
none of us are Republicans. Why did you say
hold
that?
on. Listen. What
you said a guy who could die any day and who has dementia. You're talking about Trump, right?
I'm talking about good old Sleepy Joe.
Trump is just as old as Biden. Just to throw that out there.
No, he's a whole years younger.
Yeah. Trumpian Republican, but let me just go on here and say, so it's rich that the team of Alzheimer's enablement is going to sit here and try to tell me that we are incapable of governing because we got rid of a guy that seemed to be flippy floppy, wishy washy, and put a guy that sit here is clearly so beholden to accountability that he's willing to put programs on his computer to make sure that him and his kid aren't watching porn. That says something about integrity. And y'all should be proud to have a man like that leading the Speaker of the House.
I'm super not proud to have a man who shares his porn with his kid.
No, but that's not what the program does. That's not what the program does. That's disingenuous to imply.
You know that mutual porn auditing should be kept to cousins only, not fathers and sons.
I'm sorry. I think it's really fucking weird between a father and son. Yeah, I think it's super weird between a father and son.
Let's give Gibbs.
I think it's kind of bizarre pedo behavior.
Let's give Gibbs the floor. Stop. Yeah. Let's give Gibbs the floor a bit. Let's let Gibbs get his thought out.
Why can't he have an adult friend and not
Vivian, we gotta let Gibbs. Right. We gotta give Gibbs the floor for a minute. Gibbs, you have the floor. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
that is disingenuous. I have the Covenant Eyes is the name of the program. What it does is it lets them know if they look it up, right? So what this man is doing is he's seeing what the country, he's seeing that men are having problems in this country. It's well documented that men have a lot of issues going on, and he's sitting here taking a firm interest in his son, trying to stop this child from becoming addicted to porn, which is something that millions of men in America deal with every day, and it causes people to have these like insulin
Porn
relationships.
addiction is not a valid psychiatric diagnosis.
I know that you disagree, and I know that
No,
you
I
come from maybe
don't need
different
to. It's not that I
backgrounds, but
disagree.
this
It's
is
that the American Psychological
this is
Association
a
disagrees.
community thing. They are taking accountability for their children, and this is something that like shows that he's willing.
This is a troll, right? He's
Gibbs,
mean.
No, it's
you
not a
said-
troll. It's not
Gibbs,
a
you
troll.
said it was a
You're
firm
saying
interest. Would you say it was a bulging interest?
that
Maybe?
y'all are saying this is something it's not. It's literally doesn't do that. It's not sitting here going, "Oh, he's looking at Big Mama's 8 or something." It's going over here saying, "Hey, that you're done whatever," and giving them a like an update saying, "Hey, you need to go in there and check on him." I
don't think a child needs to know whether or not. I don't think a child needs to know whether or not his dad is wanking.
If the guy is 17,
I think that's
bro, the guy's
weird.
Okay.
I
17,
think that's
it's
really
not
fucking
me.
weird.
Well, this guy entered into a covenant marriage.
Let's
Like, you think this guy's
okay.
Yeah,
We're circling the
covenant
drain on
marriage
this
is
one. We're
also
circling
really
the drain on
fucking
this
weird.
one.
The point that I'm making is this guy sticks to his
Hey,
principles.
no, it's
and
fine. You
showing-
just keep confirming the pedocon
I
theory.
can't. It's
We
not
love
even-
it.
like, you're being anyway, I'm gonna just keep moving on past. The point
His
is, this guy
principles aren't the only thing
clearly-
that's sticky.
willing to stick to his principles, right? And yeah, it's funny, but it's
Yeah, it is. It's hilarious.
It's willing.
It's
he's
also
willing to
very
stick to his
disturbing,
son,
though.
as opposed to this previous speaker who was just flipping
The
flopping
party
all
is
over the
child
place.
marriage,
Yeah, and
by
y'all
the
are
way,
mad that y'all
ladies
can't.
and gentlemen.
Okay.
Democrats
Okay.
can't over here
Okay.
say
We're
to do with their,
gonna
their
move
will.
on to Lactoid. Lactoid, go ahead.
I couldn't hear a fucking thing Gibbs could say because these fuckers just kept. It's ridiculous. No
I
sense.
can't hear a fucking word you're saying.
No
'cause you keep
sense of
peeking your
fucking.
mic.
No sense of just any kind of fucking decency or politeness. First of all, it's disgusting. Second of all, the question itself, I think, is actually completely relevant to what I just said. Was the reason why the Democrats voted to oust McCarthy, right? Are the Republicans incompetent of governing? Are they unable to get their house in order? Are they just a failure of a party? Look what they couldn't even do. They couldn't even find a fucking Speaker of the House. Yes,
Yep.
This is the literal reason why the Democrats voted against McCarthy, because they wanted to use this now as a political bludgeon to say, hey, look, they're awful, blah, blah, blah. This is why we voted against
I
McCarthy.
mean, they were fucked
despite the fact that McCarthy, the reason why he was removed, again, is because he agreed to the continuance.
Wait, hold on, please. Hold on, Lactoid, to you directly. And I don't want anyone else to answer this. I want Lactoid to answer this, please.
Yes,
okay?
Mom.
Lactoid. Before this happened, right? You understand that one of the reasons McCarthy was ousted was because of his lack of governance, his lack of ability to get things done, or the only things he was doing, the lack of trust that people within his own party had for him. So regardless of this incident being like the climax of all of this, can you not acknowledge that there were signs before this that McCarthy was in real trouble when it came to governing as a Speaker of the House?
No, I think you could have disagreements within a party that need to be like fleshed out. But if one particular wing of that party gets the sense that they can get all the Democrats on board with them for getting rid of this guy, then of course they're going to be more inclined to try to use that power, and that's exactly what happened. And now we have Mike Johnson. We'll see if Mike Johnson, I think he will do a better job at passing certain things. I think he is more ideological. I think he is well liked. So overall, I don't think it really affected like outcomes here. But no, in terms of like the McCarthy being particularly awful or the Republican Party being particularly competent, no, I don't think this is the case. I think that was facilitated by Gates and some members of the caucus, Freedom Caucus, knowing that the Democrats were going to come on board with them because they wanted to use this as a political showmanship to say the Republicans are incompetent at governing. Do I think the Republicans are incompetent at governing? Well, all parties besides base libertarians are truly incompetent at governing. So ultimately, yes, they were all incompetent at governing. But are they any less incompetent at governing than Democrats? No, I don't think so.
You would know that from all the vast libertarian governments out there.
I understand. I understand.
there
we
aren't
lose.
any. Okay,
That's because most people are evil. I agree.
Like genuine.
Okay,
genuine
I would like to go.
We gotta go. We gotta go to Staxiums. He's
Sure.
our caboose. He's gonna get us there, and then we'll.
So
open it
yeah,
back up.
I wrote down
Staxiums.
a few things. I actually kind of largely agree that Mike Johnson is a little bit of a cookie cutter Republican, and I think that speaks volumes to the Republican Party that Mr. January 6th supporter is a cookie cutter Republican. You can say whatever you want about the Democrats. You can say that Biden is some grizzled cumsock who's gonna fall into a dementia-induced coma any day now. Democrats were still able to unify under very, very, very close partisan lines. Or sorry, what I'm saying is the differentiation between the minority and majority, where it's like 2, 3, 4 people or something. I forget the exact number. I think it's 4 people. 4 people. They all got together and could vote for Jeffries. And this assertion that of course the Republicans are going to go just work with the other party if it meant that they could get some power. Why don't Democrats do that? Why don't Democrats try to lead some sort of Biden impeachment party, get on the fuck Biden train? Why don't Democrats start trying to excise their own party? And it seems like they at least are able to coalesce under very specific political pressures to ensure that they can at least keep the government running. And it speaks fucking volumes that Republicans cannot do that. That should be the basic. That should wait. Hold on. Hold on one second. It's interesting that it seems like we're both interrupting each other a little bit. That should be the floor of a political party. Okay, that should be the base floor, baseline.
It's just not as big a tent as the Republicans, right? Like broadly, the most radical Democrats. When I mean radical, I mean like most far away from the party line or whatever. Are like Manchin and Sinema or whatever, right? Whereas like the Republicans in 2016, in an attempt to get Trump elected, decided to open the doors to an extreme radical fringe. And that fringe has created a civil war in the party now, where they really can't work together on certain things, right? On a significant amount of things. I don't know what you do. I don't know what you do with that. The Republican Party is now a party in crisis. It's not the party of George Bush. Like the Tea Party was bad, but it's not as fucking bad as these MAGA nut jobs, right? Okay, clearly.
Real quick, the Democrats voted, 100% of the party voted to plunge the House to a screeching halt. It looks bad. Even if you could say it did make the Republicans look worse, it still kind of makes the Democrats look bad. They didn't vote to work with Republicans. They vote to stop legislation. They essentially shut down the House. 100% of their party shut down the House for weeks.
When did they not vote, or when did they vote to not work with Republicans? What specifically are you talking about?
To kick out the Speaker of the House.
I mean,
they did in fact work with
Wait, hold on.
Yeah, they were working with Republicans
when it came to keeping the government afloat, all Democrats, I think save one, voted to keep it afloat. The month-long
continuing
resolution. Democrats voted for that. Republicans were a split party.
Yeah, yes. They were a split party.
Well, no, Tyler, you made the claim that Democrats. You made the claim that Democrats weren't voting with Republicans, when in fact it's actually Republicans who wouldn't work with Democrats.
I clarified. Republican Party. Why didn't they work with the mainstream Republican Party?
Stax just gave you an example of when they did that. That's where we're confused. You just made a very bold claim that you've not substantiated.
They voted 100% to remove the Speaker from the House.
Who cares? That's what I'm trying to say. They kept the government afloat. They did the baseline that Republicans can't.
Because I'm not on either partisan.
Yeah, but you keep bringing this baseline thing up. I think it's a good thing. That's not necessarily a good thing. You're sitting here saying,
I agree. I wish you were higher. If only both parties could meet it.
Hold on, hear me out. So you're sitting here saying, oh, well, it's a good thing that Democrats got all on board and we're homogeneous and they're one little belief, so we got a standardized party. All that really tells me is that there's nobody principled up enough over there to stick by any of their morals and gumptions. They will sell themselves out just for the sake of sticking to
shut down the entire government.
They voted 100%. They voted 100% to do that. So how are you going to sit here and tell me?
No, they just don't have whack job extremists.
So wait a minute. Again.
No. It's good sometimes to slow things down. The United States government is designed to be intentionally slow sometimes. That's part of the design.
Are you part of the United States government?
I mean, there's slow and there's not functioning, right?
Yeah.
Like there is a significant difference.
Well,
So,
and maybe it
wait a
doesn't need
minute,
to
wait a minute.
function if we're going
When
against the moral
Democrats
values.
voted, again, when Democrats voted to back Gates' effort to kick McCarthy, they had legitimate reasons to do so, even if you think the reasons were insufficient. McCarthy did repeatedly lie to Democrats. He repeatedly lied to members of the Freedom Caucus. That was why they were united in that front. McCarthy has agency. McCarthy was not a victim of this. McCarthy could have made different decisions. He fucked up. He tried to serve two masters at the same time and paid the price. I'm not blaming Democrats for that, because the alternative is that Democrats just take the ass kicking that McCarthy can make an arrangement, extort Biden for the debt ceiling. Biden says, okay, fine, I'll make a fucking deal with you. McCarthy and Biden shake hands. Biden holds up his end. McCarthy doesn't. Democrats are just supposed to go, well, Republicans can do whatever they want. There's not supposed to be any sort of political consequence to it. You would never hold Republicans to that standard if the shoe was on the other foot.
And it's really telling of your guys' specific bias that you would prefer the Democrats to operate in that way, and sort of maybe seeing it from their perspective, where they're not going to just allow some rogue random person to just fuck up the entire government and not get anything that they want done, to just run rampant through the government. They go, well, they can't really do it. We got to stick with
McCarthy can just lie to us whenever he wants, and we have to back him whenever he needs.
The whole thing with Bernie Sanders, like not too long ago, where he was the rogue element in y'all's party. Like, don't sit here and act like y'all don't have the same kind of issues. Y'all had a whole rogue element, and y'all were mad about the super voters. That was a whole thing that happened. Did not happen? Did that or did that not happen?
Here's your problem. You can criticize Bernie Sanders as much as you want. Bernie Sanders coalesces with the Democrat Party. Bernie Sanders
did that happen?
canvasses with Joe Biden, with Hillary Clinton. He votes in line with all the Democrats, and he voted in line with all of the rest. That is the significant difference.
Did they sit here and cry and implement, oh my God, the super voters are unfair, I got screwed? Did that or did that not happen? Yes or no?
Yeah, sure. To some
it did happen. So don't sit here and act like the Republicans are the only ones that had infighting and rogue elements.
No, they don't. You're
what
right.
About the four? You get the four, AOC, Ilhan Omar. They sit here and go say wild stuff outside all the time. All the time they do this. And you're sitting here going, oh, this doesn't happen. We don't have rogue
Brolian. Hang on. Whoa. No, you're right. You're 100% right. Right now, what Republicans are going through, this is something that's actually part of the reason why I'm so thrilled about it, because usually it's Democrats that have a hard time coalescing. The famous circular firing squad that President Obama always talked about, that's us usually. But during the Trump years, particularly towards the end of the Trump administration, we really started to get our shit together. Nancy Pelosi had the same majority, the same margin that if Kevin McCarthy had, but she's a vastly better administrator. As Republicans themselves openly admitted, this would never happen under Nancy Pelosi. Fox repeatedly said it too. She was simply a superior administrator and a superior politician. This is great. This is something that usually we get hit with. But now your party has been hit with it, and it's simply manifesting itself.
It's rich. It's rich. Hold on, y'all are be about. So it's rich when you say that. Say, we're incapable of
it's manifesting itself differently. That's the difference. See, there's always been Democratic infighting, but again, Nancy Pelosi didn't go through this shit. Kevin McCarthy did. Nancy Pelosi, it didn't take her 15 rounds to get the speakership. She didn't have to basically cede all her power to the progressive caucus. She managed to corral everyone together and unite them. That separates her from somebody like Kevin McCarthy, because he's vastly less intelligent and inferior in all ways.
Blacktoid, out of curiosity, do you think that Nancy Pelosi was more effective than McCarthy was? Why or why not?
I don't think we had enough time with McCarthy to know whether or not he would have been as effective or more effective in the long run.
Isn't that
that's an answer?
Why not whether he would have? Wick didn't ask whether he would have been. He asked whether he was.
No, Nancy Pelosi is the best speaker of our time.
At her best, probably he got less done, I suppose. But at her worst, maybe there was moments that McCarthy shined. I don't have enough there to again do a full analysis. I don't really know if he is as good as Pelosi. I mean, politically speaking, I obviously disagree with Pelosi more, so I'd prefer McCarthy over Pelosi. But just in terms of efficaciousness of a speaker, I don't know.
She was good. She crushed the squad. They just turned into Democrats. They don't even. They yell a little bit on the side here, but they vote Democrat 98% of the time. She was good at her job. She ruled. Again, I said this, they called her the steel-handed in the velvet glove. She was a solid speaker. And I just don't think McCarthy had the balls for it. I don't think he believed anything. It's just, I was saying, he told this group what they wanted to hear. He told this group what they wanted to hear, and eventually the chips did come for him. I think he needed a whole more decade at least of experience before he was Pelosi level.
Yeah,
that would be true. Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is, Tyler, what you don't understand is that Democrats were obligated to just do whatever McCarthy said. Listen, he could have lied to them the way he did, reneged on multiple deals. What Lactoid's trying to convey here is that Democrats just have a responsibility to do whatever the Republicans want, even when it's inconvenient for them. They have a higher moral standard. Republicans can do whatever they want.
I'm going to let Lactoid respond to that, to be clear. Yeah. Is that what you're saying, Lactoid? Why is 𝕵𝖎𝖎 full of shit here?
Besides that, I'm a lefty.
Yeah. It should be patently like transparent, right? Because like anybody with any kind of sense of honesty, when you look at why the Democrats voted for the way they did, they just did what they did during the midterms, right? And what did they do during the midterms? They funneled a fuck ton of money into super far right Republican candidates because that's what they wanted to put on campaign slogans. That's what they wanted to put in commercials. The very people who opposed giving the election to Trump, right? Their opponents who supported Trump were getting money from the DNC during the midterms. Why? Because the Democrats didn't actually care about all these fucking quote unquote principles that they claim to stand for. They just want to fucking win. And so during the midterms, they were able to do that. They were able to fund money to unpopular far right candidates that supported Trump's plan. And despite the fact that they had lauded the other Republicans beforehand, and then what happened, right? The Democrats won in those particular areas. Now we see the exact same thing happening, where McCarthy makes a deal with the Democrats for a continuance. That deal triggers Gates to get rid of him. And so Gates is pushing to get rid of him. And where does Gates get the vast majority of his votes? He gets those votes from the Democrats in order to remove McCarthy. If only McCarthy didn't work with the Democrats, maybe he would still be Speaker today. And you can say, well, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck about McCarthy. And that's totally fine, right? I don't particularly give a fuck about McCarthy. I don't think Mike Johnson's going to be all that much different. Maybe actually slightly better. I don't fucking care. But the whole reason this came up in the first place is because somebody in the panel was saying, well, at least McCarthy had the sense for this. At least McCarthy was this. Now we have Mike Johnson, who's so much worse. Well, if Mike Johnson's all that much worse, maybe the Democrats shouldn't have voted to get rid of McCarthy.
Yeah, it's sad that Lactoid's knowledge of these events apparently just began and died the day that McCarthy was ejected from his position. But at the end of the day, he can speculate conspiratorially that the Democrats actually want the government to shut down while Joe Biden is president and will be blamed for everything, potentially. Historically speaking, Republicans at certain points have been blamed for government shutdowns, but there's a risk when you have an incredibly unpopular president like President Biden. The idea that Democrats want to shut down the government when it's historically been Republicans just to own the cons, I think Lactoid's projecting. The own the other side attitude, that's predominantly right. That's the purview of the right.
Here's what I would say.
Wait. Let me finish, but I want to respond to that.
Right. And so in terms of what really motivated Democrats, we know because they told us. He lied to Biden. He lied to Democrats again on the impeachment inquiry. He lied about the government funding. He played chicken with them, blinked at the last second, then tried to blame Democrats again for the near government shutdown. Democrats repeatedly said, publicly and in private, that they would love to make a deal with McCarthy to save his speakership. He refused to make a deal. He said it publicly and privately. I'm not going to cut a deal with the Democrats. And so what happened? Democrats then had a choice when Matt Gaetz came with the receipts. They either protect McCarthy, a guy who repeatedly lied to them and betrayed them and fucked them over and indicated no interest in working with them in good faith in the future, or they punish him and let the chips fall where they may. They chose the latter.
I have to ask you a question. Why did the DNC fund election deniers in the midterms?
Because they were easier to beat.
Oh,
really? So,
wow.
Okay, great. So what you're saying is that the Democrats will, like, politically, for political partisan reasons, like, support things that they actually don't believe in.
At times, sure.
Great. All right, thanks.
Yeah, so
do you have any proof that that's what they did here? Because
we
can do the same thing with Republicans, right?
Hold on. We gotta get more people in this. We gotta get more people in this. I know Staxiums and Gibbs have been trying to get in, and Vivian want to give you space too. So Staxiums, Gibbs, Vivian, go ahead.
Sure. I have a question for Lactoid. Let's just say that the Democratic Party, the House of Representatives, okay, you get like 20 representatives or so. They form a coalition and they go, hey, we're gonna oust Biden. Okay, we're gonna impeach him. We're gonna do it, and we're gonna work with the Republican Party. The Republican Party are like, hell, fucking yeah. Then you get the Senate, okay, and you just need like 2 senators or so right now to do the same thing, okay, and then we impeach Biden, okay. Do you think that it would be fair as me, as a Democrat who doesn't want Biden impeached, to get mad at the Republican Party, who's currently like, why not look at my own hens and say, wait, hold on, why the fuck did you, why did you leave us? Obviously, the issue would be with us. Would you not agree?
No, if the Democrats brought the impeachment specifically because of something that Biden like made a deal with the Republicans on, and then the Republicans just basically jumped on that, I would say that's scummy. I would partially, obviously, yeah, I would consider that to be partially their fault. I would consider it to be sort of like underhanded and scummy.
But like Republicans don't agree on Biden on almost anything that they're doing. Why would they not want to see him impeached?
Exactly. Sure. Now, if we're talking about for partisan political reasons, I just want fucking transparency here. Just admit that you guys fucking slimily saw a fucking opportunity to fuck over this guy and for political gain, which is exactly what you did in the fucking
hilarious.
midterms.
Why is it slimy to play politics?
I'll let you guys talk. Like you playing politics. Yes, it's slimy playing politics. It's not about like values or principles or any of this shit. It is exactly what you did in the fucking midterms. You are like seeking every opportunity to fuck people over in order to get ahead.
Let me explain it to Stacks. Stacks, I get it now. So because during an election,
right,
Democrats did a politically efficacious thing.
Right.
Anything they do afterwards is reflective of that mentality. So what's going to happen? Okay. I'm going to ask Lactoid if Trump has ever lied. And Lactoid will say, of course Trump has lied before. And using Lactoid's logic, I can say every time Trump opened his mouth, literally every time, he lied.
That's
and Lactoid, wait a minute. Lactoid would object. He would say, no, Josiah, just because Trump did something bad at this point in time doesn't mean you can automatically assume that everything he's done after is driven by the same motivation. And then I'll say, Lactoid, you're doing that same thing for Democrats. And then Lactoid's going to be like, but during the 2022 midterms, they did a bad faith thing. Ergo, anything they do afterwards is in bad faith. And then we'll just repeat the cycle.
No, let's just
wait. Hold on. So that was specifically to me, right? The reason I brought up the midterms and the fact that Democrats were funding election deniers is because you started off by talking a lot about how you think Democrats are the kind of people to do this. No, this is your side that does this. Well, no, we have like concrete like example of the Republicans didn't fucking do this, but the Democrats did. They funneled a fuck ton of money into election deniers specifically because they wanted to get elected, despite the fact that people who didn't deny the election were priorly lauded by Democrats for having so much integrity, and then they were defeated by the very people the Democrats funded, okay? And then now what we have is you have a situation in which the literal reason why Gates was pushing for McCarthy's removal was because of this continuance, which is what he worked with the Democrats on. I want to be very clear. I want to be very clear. If I understand you say Trump lies all the time, okay? If Trump,
no, I didn't. I'm using your logic.
Sure. Or Biden lies all the time. I don't give a fuck, right? If Biden was like a movement for impeachment against Biden was specifically for leaving aside all the fucking lies or whatever, if it was specifically because his impeachment was specifically because he worked with Republicans on something, and then those Republicans went ahead and like used that against him to vote him out. That's absolutely playing politics. It's absolutely being slimy.
Okay. No, this is gonna go forever. I'm throwing a flag on the play because we need to get other people in. We need to get Gibbs in. We need to get Staxiums in. We need to get Vivian in. That's the order we're gonna go in. Gibbs, Staxiums, Vivian. Go ahead.
All right, so first I want to talk about Pondring's point and how it's just fake news in general. He's sitting here saying the Democrats won't do things. Yeah, you like that? He won't be. You're sitting here saying they won't do things maliciously to win. You know, and I'm saying that's just fake. The Democratic Party is the party of the cancel culture movement. They're the modern party of anti-Semitism. They're sitting here today, you know, saying, "Oh, we're willing to vote for people. We're willing to spend money on people that we think are weaker candidates in order to win, instead of trying to back the people that we do think." Well, that basically says you're willing to compromise your beliefs in order to get things done. So that clearly shows you have no principles. So if you have no principles, it's not a jump for us to sit here and go, oh, hey, y'all are willing to do something just to screw over the Republicans to cause infighting. Because you know that Republicans have principles and they care about the issues, as opposed to Democrats who are just going to roll over and toe the party line anytime any kind of crisis comes up. And then you're going to call that good governing. I'm sorry, that's not good governing. That's weakness. And I mean, that's what y'all are showing. I mean, it's really that simple. So, like, for you to sit here and try to tell me all these things, then us look at these things and go, "Oh, cancel culture. Who started that? Democrats." We're sitting here. I look every day on Twitter. I see the anti-Semitism.
Vivian, George W. Bush, when he
Poor Staxiums is never going to get to talk on this right. Poor Staxiums never going to get to talk.
Right now, you're being canceled, Gibbs.
This is like literally driving me fucking insane. The idea that the Democrats are the party of cancel culture. Wait, motherfucker. Wait. So the idea that the Democrats are the party of anti-Semitism and cancel culture. Like, I have never seen a more unhinged fucking cancel campaign.
Have you checked the internet lately?
I have never seen
the Democratic Party.
I have never seen.
There's a difference.
Can I finish this?
The politicians.
Can I finish the sentence?
Finish.
I have never seen a more unhinged fucking cancel campaign than what happened with Dylan Mulvaney and Bud Light, okay? And all those fucking Republican politicians were on top of that. She ran a fucking 15-second fucking ad, not even ad. She talked about Bud Light for like a minute on her fucking Instagram page. Like, every single content creator here who's had more than 500 views has had like viewers at any point, right? Has had messages from various companies going, "Hey, can you talk about our product for 5 seconds and we'll give you $50," right? That's what it was. Like, they sent her a single fucking can with her face on, and that was it, dude. That was fucking it.
Vivian,
and I
could talk about Democrats that did that. It was Democrats who.
Hold on. I'd like to know.
I could talk about numerous fucking campaigns that the Republican Party has been on, book burnings, book bannings, since the fucking satanic panic, dude. For fuck's sake, okay? The war on porn and shit, right? Back in the fucking 90s, okay?
The Dixie Chicks.
Sure, I actually don't know much about that, but apparently that was a big thing.
You're not familiar with like American country music. You're not missing much.
I like some of it, but I'm not familiar with the cancelling of the Dixie Chicks by George Bush. The party of anti-Semitism. We're sitting here talking about the Freedom Caucus. We're talking about fucking Jewish space lasers, Marjorie fucking Taylor Greene. We're talking about the QAnon promoters. We're talking about the people who are constantly going on with their like George Soros conspiracism. We're talking about Paul 𝕬𝖎. We're talking about Matt Gaetz. We're talking about people who are literally in bed with fucking Nick Fuentes, Mr. 6 Million Cookies, right? Like, literal fucking neo-Nazis, okay? Like, the idea that the Democrats are like worse than the Republicans on cancel culture or anti-Semitism is just an utter denial of reality. It is insane, it is deranged, and it can only come from the point of view of somebody who thinks that these other things that the Republicans do, right, are somehow legitimate, right, and either aren't anti-Semitic or aren't cancel culture, because those are things that I don't like. So it's fine for us to have a like a fucking nationwide campaign involving bomb threats, right, because a trans woman had a fucking 1 minute a spot for Bud Light on her fucking Instagram.
Vivian, if you'll give Lactoid 5 minutes, he will find a way to blame Democrats for all of that.
Staxiums, can I ask just real quick, Staxiums, how do you let Josiah just walk over you like this? It's your turn. You're ready to go, and Josiah's just like, I'm gonna talk instead.
Salty.
All right, I'm gonna jump in.
Like a pretzel, baby.
I'm gonna jump in. I really want to focus on one thing that no one really said. Gibbs, the response that you gave when you said that conservatives were going after Dylan Mulvaney was, well, look, she's not a woman, right?
No, I said Dylan Mulvaney is anti-woman.
Wait, what'd you say?
I said Dylan Mulvaney is anti-woman.
That does, okay, so gotcha. So your point is cancel culture is only justifiable when I agree with them. It's not a principled approach. It is, well, of course, that's fine. She's anti-woman. She's a misogynist. Well, she's a problem. She's someone who needs to be excised from society. It is not a principled, I don't like cancel culture. It is, I don't like cancel culture when the party I don't like does it. I don't like cancel culture when the people I like get targeted by it. Of course, I will engage in cancel culture as soon as I gain the cultural majority. Well, and we see that as soon as conservatives get the majority. The cancel culture. Wait, hey, excuse me, Gibbs. Excuse me. Thank you. Of course, we see cancel culture happen constantly as soon as conservatives have the cultural majority. Now, I condemn most forms of cancel culture that Democrats engage in. I'm against it generally. But I have the cultural majority now, and I'm still against it. And it seems like if things were to shift, you'd be like, well, look, of course this is justified.
I would
Democrats
genuinely,
did it.
I would genuinely say, just to add, I would genuinely say that the cancel culture that the right engages in is more dangerous than the cancel culture that the left engage in.
That might be true.
When the left cancels somebody, when the left cancels somebody, maybe they lose their job, right? When the right cancels somebody, they end up getting incarcerated, a la Satanic Panic and all those fucking daycare people and shit, or it ends in bomb threats and shit, right?
$3 from Remy LeBeau to say Wick can't be canceled. Don't jinx me like that, but I am powerful and strong and white, so I'm pretty immune.
Sorry, Wick.
No, that's it. Just one.
Sure. I'm gonna say that the left has definitely engaged in their forms of political extremism and violence at times. Okay, I do think that it's outweighed by the right, but I don't care about that right here necessarily. I am trying to point out the fact that conservatives, their woke scolding is such a ruse. As soon as they hold the cultural majority, we see how they act, and we see how they acted during the Iraq War. We saw how they act currently against Dylan Mulvaney, against Nike, against anyone who assigns a Black Lives Matter logo to themselves.
Target,
100%. It is so indicative of how you guys actually operate, where you try to take this principled, I'm actually just a centrist when it comes to this. I'm pro freedom of speech. And then as soon as you own Twitter, what do you see? As soon as Nike disagrees, what do you see? It is so indicative of how conservatives react, and it's so frustrating. It's so infantilizing that you guys think that we can't see through it.
So let me tell you a major difference, right? The difference is, right, whenever conservatives sit here and do the cancel culture, y'all are sitting here, all right, there's extremists on everybody's side. Let's start with this. People sending death threats to somebody. I'm not talking about that kind of cancel culture.
Okay.
That's extreme on all sides is wrong, right? All right, this is what I am talking about. For the mainstream, when the Republicans say we're going to do cancel culture, and I'll use the Dylan Mulvaney thing, they didn't tell other people they shouldn't drink this. They didn't try to cancel Budweiser. What they said is we're going to not drink Budweiser, and they hurt their sales, and them and all their friends stopped drinking Budweiser.
Wait,
hold on. Chose to drink other options. They didn't go and tell Democrats don't go, as opposed to like the gay baker who they tried to run out of town. The left tried to run out of town and said, "Oh, your Christian morals are so immoral that you don't deserve to own a business. You don't deserve to live here. This is despicable that you won't serve a cake that compromises our beliefs." As opposed to Republicans who choose not to engage in something that doesn't support their beliefs. That's different. There's a difference between choosing to not do something and not supporting it, and then going after somebody and purposely trying to ruin their life, which
that was to me
preferred go tactic.
Staxians, go ahead.
Thank you. So, one, you said that you would condemn extremism on both sides, but you just pointed to an extreme example. Okay, I could talk about Republicans.
That is a common example.
It doesn't matter how common it is still extreme. It is always something that I would.
It's the norm. It's the norm.
Wait, hold on. Look. I would
take the W. Take the W, Stacks. He's saying that it's the norm for Republicans to be extreme. Take the W. Move on. Run the clock out. Take an E.
It is so infuriating that you're saying, look, we can talk about extremisms on both sides, but let's look at the moderates. And then you just cite an extreme example on the left's moderate. It's so disingenuous. Okay, I could talk about moderate forms of cancel culture where we didn't run out Al Franken. We just said, hey, maybe we'll just stop voting for him, actually. Maybe that's going to happen. Maybe we're a little uncomfortable with what's going to happen, but we're not going to run you out of town. And you can still write books and shit. And you can still have like a half of a comedy career. Like that form of moderate progressive cancel culture is something that I'm generally in favor of. I like how we treated Louis C.K., where we're like, actually, I want to go to your shows, but you shouldn't be in jail or anything. We're just like, I don't know about that anymore. Okay. Now we could talk about those moderate forms.
Find me a fucking politically motivated mass shooting in the last fucking 5, 6, 7 years that was motivated by left-wing ideology.
That example, because I can think of,
you can find me.
I will say, look, well, obviously
today.
Okay.
What happened today?
For one, okay.
The gay Muslim at the Pulse nightclub.
Okay, I don't know if they I don't know if their name even was Audrey Hale, right? Didn't they change it to like Alex Hale or whatever? Secondly, we still don't know the motivations for that shooting. So saying that it's a politically yeah. Are you about to tell me that they printed some stuff from the manifesto today? Are you going to do that?
I think it was yesterday, actually, or today.
Yeah, they didn't. It was fake. So
okay. Look,
yeah.
Wait, hold on. Wait, I'm going to cut you off. This is my time. I'm going to say, look, hold on. Wait, hold on one sec. It is kind of disingenuous to say that there isn't left-wing violence. When a trans shooter shoots up a Christian school, I'm going to condemn that. That is awful. That is horrific.
Of course it's fucking awful. But one, it was their school, and two, we don't know that it's politically motivated. We have no idea whether it's politically motivated. People are just assuming it is. People are just assuming it. Wait, I need to get this point out because it's something that fucks me right off generally, right? People are just assuming that it's politically motivated because that person happened to be trans, and trans people aren't allowed to exist and do anything without it supposedly being political.
Wait. So there's a statement, right? Where specifically it was like, I can't read the whole thing, I suppose, but I'll censor it.
Nothing toss, please. I like my channel. I like my monetization.
Yeah, so I fully condemn this, but this is one of the statements from the manifesto. Want to kill all you little C word for white people.
Yes, this was fake. This was fake. This was fake.
It's been it's been authenticated through Fox 17.
Yeah,
I'm going. Okay, hold on. Just real quick. Stop. I don't actually know whether it is or not, so I cannot, in good conscience, let this. Let's reframe this.
Provide the evidence. I can provide the evidence that's fake for you.
I'll take a look at it.
Okay. The Nashville police released a statement saying that the MNPD is in communication with the Metropolitan Department of Law as an investigation begun this morning continues into the dissemination of 3 photographs of writings during an online discussion about Covenant School. The photographs are not MNPD crime scene images. The police department has been in contact with a representative of combatant families. Police department counsellors are available to assist them in coping with the emotional trauma caused by the dissemination. So these are not crime scene photos or photos of the manifesto.
𝕵𝖔𝖎 will take a look because this is ABC and Fox that are saying it's verified.
That might be true. That might be true. But wait, hold on. I do want to say that we.
But even so, regardless,
the motivation. This is to your point, Viv. This is to your point. I could name 20 times more examples of.
I mean, that's what I was going to say, right? Yeah. Regardless, right? If you can name me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I can name you 30, 40, 50, right?
Absolutely.
There is no.
We can talk about the Auckland shooter who decided to
there is
no. We can talk about the Buffalo shooter.
Okay, we get
House
this.
Democrats are responsible for all this.
But let's talk about the Speaker of the House.
In right-wing terrorism versus left-wing terrorism.
Let's talk about the Speaker of the House.
I wouldn't be surprised if the DNC is funding that too.
I would love to talk about the Speaker of the House.
Maybe they're funding the right-wing terrorism.
Can we talk about the Speaker of the House? Is that?
Everything's a Democrat plot to make Republicans look bad. Anything that makes the right look bad is a Democratic conspiracy.
At this point, I might believe it. Honestly,
I think that they're look.
I know you might believe it, but that's because you're fucking unhinged, dude.
I think obviously there's going to be extremism on both sides. What I'm most
Of course there is.
The very thing that I'm very interested in is how are these parties responding to it? And I'm very, very, very.
Well, the Democrats condemn it, and the Republicans fucking walk up and suck off the shooter.
You could say that the Democratic Party is incredibly anti-Semitic right now, but still, Bernie Sanders condemned Hamas and said that Israel has a right to self-defend. And that is like the first person that most progressives are going to go to towards progressive thought. Yeah, I mean, that is fair. But I don't, other than Tlaib, I think that was the only person who didn't like very much come in favor in Israel's like right to self-defense. So this idea, like, we do need to draw some sort of separation in between the Democratic Party and the Democratic voters, because we can point to any of the, I don't know how many fucking Democratic voters are there, 100 million or so. We can point to any one of them and pick out any extreme figures that we want. I am way more interested in what the House has said, what senators have said, what the president have said, what any of the elected officials.
The thing is, the public are the supporters of the party are a reflection of the party to a certain degree, right? Like, the fact that there are more Republican mass shooters, more like far-right terrorist incidents.
Once we
that
include gang violence and mass shooting changes dramatically of which side is, implementing these shootings. So if we want to start including gang violence and minority, so we're saying it's
politically motivated.
Sorry, are people?
Political motive. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's terrorism, right? That's what I'm talking about. Political extremism and terrorism. I don't care whether you think ex-gangbanger was a Democratic voter. It's about Anyway, fuck, totally threw me off. Somebody else will have to go.
I felt earlier.
I want to toss it. I want to toss it to 𝕵𝖎𝖙 real quick, and then we go to Lactoid. Oh, unless do you have your stuff back?
I mean, listen. As far as the speaker thing, getting back to Mike Johnson, I think that he is going to make an incredibly challenging 2024 election cycle for Republicans in the House even more challenging, which is great for Democrats long term. He's not going to get anything done per se. So in terms of like, I thought I saw the initial, prompt was, how great of a speaker would he be or successful? In terms of like getting a conservative agenda through, if that's how you define success, he's fucked. He's going to be, assuming he's able to whip all the votes, which by the way, there's no guarantee given how chaotic the House Republican conference has been. He's going to hit a brick wall in the Senate. And then even if he busts through the wall in the Senate somehow, he's going to hit an even harder wall with Biden's veto pen. He's fucked there. So the only thing that he can potentially do is obstruct anything from the Biden administration. But I think at this point, we've all expected that it's basically a lame duck presidency until the presidential election next year. So he's going to be politically toxic for the Republican Party, and he's going to potentially shut down the government, which, again, historically speaking, has backfired on Republicans more. But there's some compounding factors there. Again, Biden is very unpopular. There's some other headwinds which are different. People tend to forget about these things by the time the election rolls around. But I think the odds are against him, because it's not just to simply represent your constituency at this point. He has to be the chief administrative officer of Congress, and he's basically herding cats at this point. As a matter of fact, and I'll say this before Tyler, I guess, wants to say something, Marjorie Taylor Greene at this point is even publicly threatening him as well, and she was full-throatedly endorsing him. She's worried that he's going to cave to Biden when this continuing resolution expires, and she's pissed that.
Wasn't she on side with McCarthy anyway? Isn't that why she ended up calling Lauren Boebert a little bitch?
Yeah, I think a vaping, groping, something or another is what she said at one point. But yeah, so it's not looking good for Mike Johnson.
So in terms of what somebody can do when they're in power, it really depends on the dynamics of the House, Senate, and presidency of when they're in power. So Mike Johnson, absolutely 0% of the Republican legislation is getting passed, but he has many more options than just being an obstructionist. So a tactic that you see from the party out of power when they control either the House or the Senate is they'll put bills to the floor that somewhat advertise to the American public, this is the route that we would go in if we were in power. The number one step for you when you gain power in government is to expand your mandate to try to get the majority of the House, majority of the Senate, and to try to get the presidency. So to expand his mandate, he's going to use his position as speaker to make a case to the American people to vote for the Republicans. It's huge for them. It puts them in a much better place to have one of these three chambers on their side. And in this case, he can start pushing policy. McCarthy was doing it as well. I got about 50, if you guys looked at that document I made, I got about 50 policies that McCarthy tried to pass through the House. And of those, I want to say that maybe 12, 20, 15, 20 of them were all co-sponsored by Mike Johnson. So this guy in terms of policy, is a bit of a machine with putting the policy out that he liked. Again, maybe 20 policies he co-sponsored and another 35 that they voted on that they passed through the House. So that's what they're going to be doing. And if he can rally those cats, herd of those cats, as you're saying, which is accurate, then he could actually start using the bully pulpit platform of the House to push out mainstream Republican legislation to the people. He could be good for the party. Let's see how he does.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's going to be very difficult for him because, like y'all said, the herd of cats thing. I think it's an apt analogy. I mean, just last month we had what's his name, 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙 pull a fire alarm to stop a vote on the spending bill, and then we're going to sit here and turn around and blame Republicans for this kind of thing. So yeah, I think it is going to be hard because we're going to have disingenuous acts like that where he's going to sit here after doing it, not even cope to admitting to do it. He's just like, oh, didn't mean to do it until the Capitol Police shows the record, of him like fighting to push through 2 doors that were emergency doors and then pulling it and then he's got egg on his face. So yeah, I think it's gonna be very difficult to work with a party that's willing to do anything to win like this and has no sense of morality. So yeah, I feel for the guy, but I think he will be able to rally Republicans
Are
fairly.
you talking about 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙 working with Republicans when you say working with a party that'll do anything to win? I got confused there at the end.
Well, I know that following a straight line thought here is very difficult for you, but it's pretty simple. Whenever one guy's a Democrat and he pulls a fire alarm on a bill sponsored by McCarthy, which side is cheating here? Like, let's just level.
Have you
Come on, man.
okay? But have you seen the sign of it? Because it was genuinely confusing. Like it
Bro,
was.
the guy tries to push 2 emergency exits and then pulls the fire alarm. You can't cope on me telling me that wasn't
Here,
intentional.
let me pull up the exact sign because it was. I looked at it and I was like, oh,
It's
I
not just a
understand if
sign,
you're a
bro.
Okay,
lefty
okay.
that might
We're not gonna
try.
get
I'll
we're not
watch the
gonna
video.
get down the sign rabbit hole. I didn't like. Okay,
Gibbs,
let's-
are you a Trump guy? Just out of curiosity.
No, I'm definitely not a Trump guy. I mean,
Oh,
I'll
okay, that's
step
cool.
over whoever the Democrats put forward, but
Oh, gotcha. But pulling a fire alarm is like where you draw the line. Just okay.
I mean, wait, like you're saying where I draw the line? No, I'm just saying it's exhibiting the all the disingenuous, amoral, immoral tactics that the Democrats are willing to do because they're willing to
So
compromise their morality
So
in
the so the
order to
Trump
accomplish
voter, the
a
Trump
shared
voter is
goal.
again talking about amoral, disingenuous tactics. Well, actually, if we give Lactoid about 5 minutes, I'm sure Trump's amoral, disingenuous tactics are the responsibility of House Democrats. Give him 5 minutes, he's gonna have a flow chart put
we're
together.
not gonna give him 5 minutes, but we are gonna give him some space. We are gonna give Lactoid some space here in a minute, right? It won't be 5 minutes.
I know
ain't
no one
one
cares
got
about the
that kind of
sign,
time, but-
but the sign did say emergency exit only. Push until alarm sounds 5 seconds. Door will unlock in 30
I'll just watch
seconds.
the
And I
video.
understand if you're in a rush, you might be like, maybe the alarm actually unlocks this door. I don't know.
Bro,
I understand. I understand. The sign is super confusing.
I posted a link from the New York
Legitimately.
Times where they show the video and they talk about the video. I don't know if they show the video, but the police break down the video. And it is
Well, look at the sign. That's what I would say. That's all I'll say.
Okay, Lactoid, it's floor is yours. So again, 𝕫𝖎𝖙 has said, just to kind of reiterate, that the new speaker is likely not going to be able to get anything passed. He's likely going to be toxic in the upcoming 2024 elections because he can't get anything passed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, Tyler has said that no, he has other options, and he elucidated a few. What is your opinion on how his election and his speakership will influence possibly the 2024 elections?
I mean, first thing, DNC are slimy political hacks. Just want to make that clear. Second thing, when it comes to specifically, again, like I said before, I don't think that he is going to be that much significantly different than McCarthy. I think it's interesting how, he's referred to as toxic or obstructionist, right? When the, bills that come out of the House are, agreed upon by the Republicans, but then die in the Senate. And it's blamed on them for being obstructionist because they aren't giving the Senate Democrats what they want. But it's not considered obstructionist when the Democrats don't get what they want from the House, and so they don't send it over to Biden, who then probably would veto it, right? So I think, again, this is like one of the issues, or I guess maybe even one of the inbuilt designs when it comes to our system of government, which is it's not obstructionism. It's I mean, I guess under some definitions, but both parties are being equally obstructionist, right? Like when you are in power and you are sending what you agree on as a bill and the other party says no, and then you come back to the drawing board, I mean, they're just as much responsible as you are for that bill not getting passed, which I don't think is necessarily a problem. But it's not like this is the Republicans' fault. So I don't think he's going to, as long as they're able to make that clear to the American voter, I don't think that's going to make it super, I guess that's really going to put them at that much of a disadvantage at the new election, especially, again, given how unpopular Biden is.
I was going to say real quick, when I said this, that Johnson was toxic, I didn't just mean to his inability to get anything passed. It's also, his history as far as like his comments with religion, his stance on abortion, things like that. I mean, he's going to be the target.
What is the most toxic
He's
portion,
cookie cutter.
like for you, 𝕬𝖎𝖎? What do you think is like the albatross around the speaker's
I think
necks,
it's a combination.
if you had to-
I think it's a combination of two things. If I had to, I would say his very extreme views on abortion, which are out of step with the vast majority of Americans, and the role he played in trying to help Donald Trump steal an election. Now, to be fair, when Donald Trump tried to steal the election, it's not quite as bad as pulling a fire alarm. But like, if we could consider, like, Trump tried to pull the fire alarm inappropriately on democracy to steal an election, I would say it's those two things that are going to be really toxic for Mike Johnson. Although, I'm telling you, if you give Lactoid 5 minutes, he can find a way to make it House Democrats' fault, Wick. We can have a really entertaining conversation here. Give him 5 minutes. The clock is starting, Lactoid. Come on.
If I had $1 every time you said that, I could probably give it to the DNC and they could fund election deniers in the next election, probably.
Mike Johnson did vote for 20-week abortion ban, meaning he can be swayed. I don't think he's as hardlined as maybe give tribute him to be.
Well, no. So in terms of what he has said about abortion, so I think he supports no exception abortions for rape or incest. I think he supports even 6-week abortion bans. I don't have the quote on me right now, but I think he gave an interview with Shannon Bream from Fox News over the weekend, in which she asked him about that, and he said, "Well, I came to Congress with some deeply held convictions." So even if legislatively, even if he could be moved legislatively, the reason that I think he'll be toxic is because those clips and those public positions are going to feature very heavily in election ads in 2024.
So in fairness, I watched his entire fucking thing with Sean Hannity. And the thing that really kind of alarmed me was when they were talking about Roe v. Wade and 𝕵𝖎𝖎, right? Is that he doesn't seem to have a particularly coherent position, right? Like, he wants to justify the overturning of Roe v. Wade, while simultaneously saying that he wouldn't necessarily support or try to overturn 𝕵𝖎𝖎 because the Supreme Court decided, and that, I just respect the law, and therefore that's what the law is. And then he gets asked about Roe v. Wade, and he's like, "Oh, well, yeah, no, obviously I thought Roe v. Wade was a bad decision, so it was good that it was overturned." It shows me that this person is probably willing to see 𝕵𝖎𝖎 overturned as well.
He also opposed the Respect for Marriage Act, which Democrats and some Republicans passed under President Biden in 2022 as a way to shore up most of the 𝕵𝖎𝖎 protections, and Johnson voted against it. So, yeah, again, he's fodder for the most.
This is something that I mentioned.
Just for the audience, is against gay marriage. He's against gay marriage in this country.
Yeah.
Which is something that I mentioned in my opening, but we haven't really got to all that much. Is like his statements on LGBT people, which, if we're talking about whether or not he's like better or worse for the people of America, than Kevin McCarthy, it would certainly seem that he has more extreme views on gay people than McCarthy did.
This is rhetoric, yes, but if you look at his voting record, he co-sponsored a bill in 2023 that prohibits discrimination in housing, work, school for people based on discrimination based on sex, sexual orientation, or gender identity. So again, he has some rhetoric out there that's probably pretty bad.
No, but we're also talking about his voting
record. Let's let Tyler finish, and then we can respond to that. So Tyler, go ahead.
In terms of his voting record, he can be swayed on these things, and this isn't just swayed. He co-sponsored this legislation, meaning he signed his name to it, saying this.
Can you link me the bill, please, so I can see?
I'd have to dig. I can do it after this. It's in my notes that I linked.
Okay.
I'll have to dig for it.
Did he sign the wrong paper?
Because this
well,
is a man
that's
who's,
just if I may
advocated for criminalizing homosexuality.
If I may though,
right?
If I may though, to the point that Tyler is trying to make, right? Regardless of what he says, if what he does and what he's voting for, what he's sponsoring, is not in line with the extreme rhetoric, which do we trust more, what he says or what he does?
So I would
think
agree
it
that
would really depend on the context. Like the
Yeah,
context
to be
of
clear, I
making
haven't
that
seen
bill,
this particular bill,
Right,
right? So I
And it's
don't
a
know,
mixed
but I'm
bag,
just
right?
let's assume for sake of discussion, right, that it
Okay.
is a solid bill that does protect the rights of minorities, gay and lesbian and queer people.
Well, the thing
to-
is that I can't trust what he says because I just pointed out the inconsistencies with his position on Roe v. Wade versus his position on 𝕵𝖎𝖙 whilst trying to maintain the line that he respects the law, so he's not going to try and change the things that the Supreme Court has decided, right? So, like, I don't believe him. I can't trust his fucking words at all. And I guess that can go the other way as well. Like, he could just be saying extreme things because he knows that he can play to a certain extreme base. If I recall, though, a lot of these statements were made like quite a while ago as well, right? That these have been like relatively consistent positions for him as well.
Yeah, it's
So it
been
doesn't
over a
seem
span of
like
like
it's been-
20 years that
Yeah,
he's
it
been
does-
saying stuff like that.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's something that he's been saying to be politically expedient. It seems like these are like truly held beliefs for him, and this is sort of backed up by his fundamentalist Christian lifestyle as well, with the covenant marriage and the fucking weird shit with his kid, right, and all that sort of stuff. So,
So to Vivian's point,
I think he fundamentally believes it. I would hypothetically, if he signed this, if he like co-signed anti-discrimination law for LGBT people, I think fuck, I forget his name, top mid, whatever that chap's name is. Tyler.
top
there it is.
mid.
Sorry.
That was my name.
I
in
think
college.
what he said was it was for gender, what was it, gender, sexual orientation, and something else,
And sex.
and gender, sex, and sexual orientation, right? Was that gender or gender identity?
I think gender identity was included. I'm looking for it right now.
Was it discrimination or non-discrimination?
Here's
Discrimination.
Well, let's toss it to Staxians for a minute. Go ahead.
Here's what I was going to say. To engage
Eliminate-
with hold on, sorry. Hold on. To engage with Wick's question, which is let's take for granted, which we don't know yet. Let's take for granted that he actually co-sponsored this. 50% is still a failing grade. Like gay marriage is pretty standard for most Americans to believe in. Sure, this is a relatively new feature. I mean, I think 𝕵𝖎𝖙 was like 2013, if I'm remembering
2015.
correctly. 2015. So it's only been 8 years, but it's only like throughout those 8 years, it's been pretty solidified as this is just like the American way. I think that's pretty fair to say that that's public opinion. And I think that if you find polls, I think they'd agree with me. 50% is not a passing grade. Like that, you have to show.
I mean,
up
it's
for all
not
of the-
even 50%, is it? But sure. Because like non-discrimination bills are bills that like affect everybody. This is why I said I'd have to see the context around the bill as well. Like, I don't know, maybe he's signing this bill because he's like, I don't want white people, straight people, or men to be discriminated against, right? Like, I don't fucking
I also
know.
don't want that to happen, to be clear. But
Well, I don't want that to happen either.
Right.
But the idea, but if that's his motivation behind signing that bill, then he's not doing it on behalf of the LGBT
Sure,
community.
but we can agree
Right.
that this bill writ large is good, and I'm glad that he co-sponsored it. But like, again, this is not just something that he says versus what he's done. We're also talking about votes that he's been
Again,
awarded.
depending on the context of the bill. There's also the fact that, like, I don't know, maybe it was part of a particular political deal where they're just like, hey, you co-sponsor this deal, we'll put X.
Sure,
thing that you
and
want
yeah,
in
well,
it
I
as
think-
well,
I
And
right?
maybe
I
the
think
bill
the
is
thing
about terrorist
well, I
attacks.
think-
Like, this could be about it. Like, I don't know.
I
what
think
to-
what Stax
like-
is saying is
I
even
mean-
if you assume the best, even
Sure.
if you assume give Mike
Yeah.
Johnson charity, which he does not deserve,
Which I'm
to
willing
show
Sure.
the
to
Republican
read the
Party's
bill.
dishonesty, it's
Yeah.
still it's still a mixed record at best, which makes him politically toxic,
Blacktoid.
given
Yeah.
his consistent
Yeah,
rhetoric.
just real quick, Lactoid.
Thank you.
What do you think of all that? Right, I'm just curious.
Yeah,
Would you
I'm not
agree,
concerned.
disagree?
Well, I'm not concerned about his like. I understand he's a fundamentalist evangelical Christian, right? He's going to be opposed to gay marriage. I understand that. I don't necessarily agree with him in just his position on that. From like just a constitutional law perspective, I think Roe was absolutely awful, and I think that he was Mike is right to support that being overturned. But I also think Obergefell was also pretty weak. And I did look up his statement on Obergefell, and that statement does appear to be a little bit of a dodge, right? He does appear to be saying, well, that's just the law of the land, like we shouldn't challenge it. But I mean, as a constitutional lawyer, he should be able to say, like, yeah, like I respect the court's decision, but I disagree with it, right? That would be probably the honest thing to do.
And that is what he said about Roe versus Wade. That was my point, right? He has these inconsistent positions.
Well, hold on. If that's what he said about Roe v. Wade, which is like, I recognize it's the law, but I disagree with how the court ruled, then that seems to match pretty consistently what he said about Obergefell, which I think is good. Like,
no, it doesn't. It's the opposite.
Confirm
if he says no, not the overturning of Roe v. Wade. I mean the initial judgment of Roe v. Wade. That's what he said about the initial judgment of Roe v. Wade. Is that, you know, he thought he didn't agree with the law. He thought it was a bad law. And it was right that it got overturned, right? Whereas for Obergefell, he's saying, well, the Supreme Court have made that ruling, that I respect the law, right? Which is not, these are not consistent positions.
I think he's saying that the cases are a lot different. Like,
no, that's not what he's saying.
Wait, hold on.
These are actually could be consistent positions, right? You can, it's two different statements to say, no, well, hold on, it's two different positions, right? You can say that you agree with a law, like the ruling, you agree with how the justices decided, and there's a different question about authority, right? And this is why I think this was a little bit of a dodge, because instead of giving his opinion on whether or not he thinks Obergefell was rightfully ruled, he just says, well, the court's, like, I respect the authority of the court, which he should be doing for all cases because lawyers have to.
For sure. I want to jump in real quick, because if I'm remembering correctly, the justification for the Roe v. Wade overturning is that the Supreme Court shouldn't be legislating behind the bench. That's basically the job of legislators, right? Mike Johnson is the legislator. So, like, why didn't he show up during the Respect for Marriage? Like, I get from, like, a constitutional perspective, hey, look, Supreme Court shouldn't touch that. They shouldn't go over gay marriage. They shouldn't legalize that. They shouldn't ban abortion. That's not the role of the Supreme Court. That's the role of the legislative branch. Then why the fuck isn't Mike Johnson stepping up when it's his time to do so?
Because he personally, are you going to say something about the DNC
no,
funding?
for real, no. I'm sure you agree that if Mike Johnson had it his way, gay marriage would not be the law of the land. I'm sure you would concede to that, because otherwise he would have supported the Respect for Marriage Act if he thought that Obergefell was similarly weak as Roe v. Wade, that it was a case of judicial activism, therefore it's the responsibility of the legislature, therefore I'm going to back the Respect for Marriage Act, which codifies some sort of gay marriage protections. And I hope Obergefell is overturned, because now the legislature's done its job.
Right.
Well, I agree, right? And that's where he differs from my position, because I agree that Obergefell should probably be overruled from a constitutional perspective, but then I would like to see some kind of legislation be passed that would solidify it now. But what I'm saying is that I understand Mike Johnson is absolutely, like, personally also opposed to gay marriage because he's religious, right? Very, very much so. So I do, when I see him say that, I don't think that what he said about Obergefell is necessarily inconsistent with what he said before. It's just him dodging the question, right? When he says, well, I support whatever the Supreme Court says, like, because it's the law of the land. He's not really giving his opinion, but we know his opinion because he said it before, that he doesn't like gay marriage.
And I think
he's even gone further than that.
Go ahead, Gibbs.
Yeah, so he's even gone further than that. Like, he just had a hearing on the limiting gender affirming care, in which he called, like, the LGBTQ movement a social contagion, right? So this guy clearly believes that, like, that like, firmly in his heart that, that he's against gay marriage and all these things. So yeah, I agree with the statement, if he had his way, that he'd probably, whatever. But I also don't know, based off what I've seen on his voting records, that this is like a high voting priority for him. He's willing to compromise on this issue to get the issues he cares about more done, which is something you want in a leader. Like, you don't want them to focus on, like, the stupid shit or the things that are low priority.
Gibbs, you don't want. Whoa, hold on, stop, Gibbs. This whole time you've been like, Democrats will give up their values in order to get things done. And now, at the 11th hour, we're about to end. You're like, well, you wanted a leader, someone who's going to compromise their values to get what they want more done. What are you doing, Gibbs?
Gibbs is a Democrat. Gibbs, reveal yourself.
I'll explain what I mean.
Please.
If he could, and he thought it was viable, he would, I think, try to stick to his guns on all the issues and go. However, there are issues that he thinks that are more important to him that he's clearly willing to vote on, right? It's not necessarily that he's compromising his values.
But why? Well, okay,
But he
why
would
are
vote
you
against
giving
his
him
values.
this charity when it's him,
Yes.
but you won't give Democrats that charity when it's them, when they do the same thing?
Because what he does is supported by his voting record. What the Democrats are doing is they're pulling fire alarms to stop bills. Like, it's clearly a different
Wait,
tactic.
hold on. You're moving the goalposts so much.
No, I'm not.
That's not
It's
what
the
you were
exact
talking
same.
about at all.
Yes,
You were condemning Democrats for not supporting McCarthy. That's what you were talking. You were talking about Jamal Bowman. That happened way later in the conversation. You were so critical of Democrats, and you even said, "Wait, you think they would vote against something that they personally didn't believe in?"
I'm saying it's very clearly off his effort. He's made his position known. He's stood by his values on that. However, when it comes to voting, he's very willing to sit here and go, "All right, this is what I want more."
Gibbs, I'm gonna be honest with you. Gibbs, I'm gonna be honest with you. You just threw all the arguments you'd been making up to this point.
well, I disagree,
you just
but that's
threw it out the window. You just
say it's totally
abandoned them.
different.
It's
It's
just
totally
okay.
Right.
I do have
Can I
one
ask you
question.
point
I do
blank?
have one question because we are running out of time, and I know some of you have to go, right? But I want this question answered before we get to closing statements and things like that. And we're gonna start with you, Gibbs, because I'm very curious.
Sure.
You are king of the universe. You can go back in time and you can choose McCarthy or Johnson. Which do you think would have been a better speaker, right? McCarthy or Johnson? You can go back in time and change this all and make it sure that McCarthy stays if you want. Do you push that button? Do you pull that lever? Do you do that? Do you pull that fire alarm?
Yeah, I mean McCarthy had to go. He was ineffective. And,
Okay, so
it was
Johnson. We got vote for Johnson.
Yeah.
Vote for Johnson. Tyler, what do you think?
Whew, that's tough. I don't think I've seen enough from Mike Johnson, but his first action since he took office to appropriate money from something his party didn't like, which was IRS spending, and make it toward Israel, something that like nobody with a Jewish constituency they're relying on would vote no against. I think it was a smart political tactic to take a win and turn it into a slightly more win for his party. It kind of shows that he has some acumen to do it. And if you watch him in a committee hearing, he seems relatively intelligent, where I've never seen McCarthy in a committee before. So I would say that the risk to move to this guy is probably better. I liked McCarthy. I felt
Yeah,
like
how
he
the
would've been-
fuck was he going to get Congress to vote for Israel aid? How would he get a bipartisan approval for that? That just seems. I'm so grateful he was able to pull that together.
Yeah, well, like
It's
it
so
was a
unlike
no-brainer.
Congress.
It's a no-brainer that they had to pass it. But that's what I'm saying. He took something that they were going to pass, and they had to pass, and he tacked on a little extra to give his party some sugar. That's a move of a good speaker. Is the point I'm trying to make.
Okay, well, Josiah, you got the next up. You are now you have. Or do you pull that fire alarm?
I disagree with that. I think that that's probably good for being like a strong ideologue, but I actually think that that's the exact opposite. See, there's bipartisan support for Israeli aid. So he actually snatched defeat from the jaws of victory by tacking on that proviso with IRS funding because there's no fucking way it's making it to the Senate. And again, even if it did, Biden would go, fuck you, and send it back. So now nothing's going to get passed. And even if it did get passed, well, even if that got passed, it would be actually adding to the deficit, which is also undermining another element of the conservative agenda, which is fiscal responsibility. So, yeah, I actually disagree. I think that was a really stupid move in terms of legislating. Now, in terms of, again, ideology, I could see Tyler's argument, but that's what you don't want that in a speaker. He's the chief administrative officer of Congress. You want actually legislation to get passed. And when you have something like, hey, 90% of my caucus wants Israeli aid, 70 to 80% of the Democratic caucus wants Israeli aid, the Senate's behind it, the president's behind it, instead of getting it the fucking way through, and then you can say, hey, thanks to me pitching this in the House, I got it through the Senate, I got the president to sign it, and this was my first major piece of legislation 3 days into the job. What did Mike Johnson do?
How shitty does it look if it gets voted down by the Democrats or sent back by Biden?
Exactly. Wait, hold on. If there's anything, actually, this feels like such a victory win for Democrats because now they get to turn down Israeli aid, fueling all of the pro-Palestinian voices that are now on the Democratic Party.
Hold on.
Yeah,
wait,
stop.
We have polling on this, just real quick. We have polling on this. You don't win votes by not supporting Israel in America, right? Whether you think that's right or wrong, you lose votes if you don't support Israel.
What I'm trying to say is, I largely agree. What I'm trying to say is, they get to take up the appearance for the pro-Palestine side while still being pro-Israel.
No, they're going to be beat over the head with that is a problem, right? To Tyler's point here, this is where I agree with Tyler here. It's going to be used as a bludgeon saying, hey, you had the chance to support Israel, but you didn't. And again, 70% of the country, right, which is a large portion, is pro-Israel. Rightly or wrongly, whether you think that's good or bad.
Wait. This is something that really worries me for the next election, right? Because you can't play both sides on an issue like this. And you here in the United Kingdom, we had the exact kind of same thing with Brexit and Jeremy Corbyn, right? Like, sure, Jeremy Corbyn was fucking slandered in the media. There was the whole anti-Semitism smear campaign and all that sort of fucking shit, right? But at the end of the day, one of the biggest things he lost on was his shit stance on Brexit, trying to play both sides on that stuff. That just loses you the confidence of both sides. It doesn't fucking help you. Yeah.
So what I was gonna say was, I'd like to test Wick on this, because Wick, fair enough. You're right. If under the right circumstances, and Tyler, you're right, under the right circumstances, Republicans could conceivably message, hey, we pitched a bill. The Senate stopped it, Biden vetoed it, whatever. Now I'm going to ask you, given that Biden was the first one to propose and actually send a bill for Israel funding in the first place, as a matter of fact, dollar for dollar, it was identical. Republicans took Biden's bill, matched the exact amount, $12.5 billion, I think it was, and just said it has to be paired with IRS cuts. Theoretically, couldn't Democrats say, actually, no, It's not our fault.
It's possible.
We were the ones who sent a bill first.
I get you.
And it was a clean bill. And actually, Republicans played fucking games with it.
I understand. Just real quick, stop. I want to answer Josiah's question. I want to answer Josiah's question. I want to answer your question. Yeah. That is possible. But my problem with it is what this does is it makes it risky, right? I don't know who will win out in the messaging wars, but this was what Johnson was able to do by this is to put it back in play. So it's not just a clean Biden win. So now that it muddies the waters, and just from a pure power politics perspective, that was a smart move.
Well, wait a minute, but see, that's where I'm wondering if maybe you're getting the calculus wrong, or maybe I'm getting it wrong, because
but you're also missing a big factor there with that. Okay, so another reason why he added this is because a lot of average Republican voters are going, "Hey, bro, we don't have enough money to run the government yet. We're sending all our money to Ukraine. We're sending all our money to Israel. I know that that's tied up in like how we do the budgets and whatnot, but this is a way for him to say, signal to his base, hey, you know what? We do support Israel. Let's get the funding. But also at the same time, I hear your pain that the government's growing too much and is sending out too much tax officers. They literally have a thing now where they can check for $600 and audit that. That's ridiculous. I understand the common person, and this is a win because now he's signaling, I do support this, but we need to chalk in some of this government spending at the same time.
The problem, of course, being the CBO came back and actually said it would add more to the debt doing it Johnson's way. But
obviously, it's revenue positive.
Yeah. But real quick, so Wick, you said that it took a clean Biden victory and muddied the waters, and I would agree, making it a risk from a guaranteed Biden win to something that Democrats might be able to lose on.
Yep.
But I'm saying it could have also been pitched as a clean Johnson win too. You see what I'm saying?
I understand, but Johnson isn't in the position where he's going to need to defend himself as much, right? Like, so Biden is on the chopping block very soon, right? And so I think that, like, just from a calculus perspective, like, you just won your seat, right? Maybe you haven't shored up completely, but if I'm in Johnson's shoes, right? I have the wind at my back. Okay, I'm here. I just got elected. Let's show that I'm willing to fight, that I'm willing to punch up, right? And also, I'm going to throw a bone, right? Or throw a wrench into the works of the 2024 elections and make this an issue that can be debated. Now, I could be wrong on this, right? This is just first impressions. This is just initial, like, first blush reading of it, but it looks like a smart move. Just just a smart move.
2024 is going to be a fucking disaster, dude. I can already feel it.
It's going to be, there's problems with it.
It's going to be a fucking bloodbath, and I genuinely think, and I've been saying this for fucking months, I think I said this on one of your panels, like a few, like 4 or 5 months ago or whatever. I think Trump has a much better chance of winning than a lot of people give him credit for, because I think Biden is incredibly weak and just doesn't have
this is a panel for another day, but again, I want to respect everyone's time, because again, we have to get to closing statements, but I just real quick, just a Johnson or McCarthy, I want to hear the rest of the people. Just Johnson or McCarthy, what do you think if you had to choose, Vivian?
Johnson or McCarthy?
Those are your choices.
I don't see a huge amount of air between them. I do think that Johnson is slightly worse. I think I hold to what I said at the start of the panel, is that, like, it's not necessarily the people, but it's what it signifies, right? Which is the Freedom Caucus's greater hold over the Republican Party, which is the thing to be really concerned about. So it's what the election of Johnson brings with it, rather than just the man itself.
Noted. Okay. Stack seems quick.
Yeah, I would say McCarthy, because if I'm king of the timeline, I forced McCarthy to actually work with Democrats and get some of the shit that they want done.
Okay.
So now he's still in power and Democrats got what they want. So definitely him.
Lactoid.
Johnson. I think now he knows what to expect, and I also really hope that the Democrats reap what they sow. We'll see.
We didn't in the midterms.
And with that, gang, thank you for coming to this rousing debate on all sorts of things. I want to get to closing statements, but before we do, let's tell what we got coming up. Okay. Tomorrow we're going to be having 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜 on, who is running for mayor in Britain, apparently. And we're going to have Socrates, and we're going to be talking about
where?
I don't know the city. I'd have to pull it up, but his name's 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜 in England somewhere. Yeah, he's an English politician.
Is it the Lord Buckley?
I don't know.
Duke of Wellingham.
He's going to come on, and we're going to talk to him. And we're going to talk to Socrates as well. And we're going to talk about the spat of people canceling pro-Palestinian voices. It's a very big concern, right? People who are expressing sympathies towards Palestine are being...
he's a reform candidate.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, that's fine. Are being ousted from their jobs. They're being fired. They're being let go from their university positions. And we're going to talk about, is this fair? Is this something, or is this just cancel culture, right? Striking again. And I think that 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙𝖘𝖍𝖔𝖜, who has been a victim of cancel culture, I'm curious to what.
Yeah, he's a fucking lunatic.
Yeah, but we'll get into it. We'll get into it. We'll have him on tomorrow. It'll be fun. It'll be a great discussion. Wednesday, we're going to have horror discourse. Is horror a slur? Thursday, we have some women coming on to talk about how women have failed women in this space as content creators. And then Friday is going to be Brianna Wu versus Short Fat Otaku. And they're going to be having a one-on-one discussion about all sorts of things. Tune in. It's going to be great. It'll be awesome. And gang, if you like this content, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, throw me money, throw me bits, throw me all sorts of things. I love it. I love your money. Give me money. But let's get to my wonderful guests and give a chance to shout themselves out, tell where you can give them money, right? And we'll go for it. We're going to start with Gibbs. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Admiral Gibbs and everything. We be wilding out. You can see me pretty much. I do a lot of politics. We also do sci-fi, Warhammer 40K, Star Wars. I know Pondering's a big Revan fan, and I just want to say he's the most overrated character in Star Wars and the biggest loser in all Star Wars history. And I have the evidence to support that behind me. So, other than that, yeah, if you ever want to see me yell and say some more wild things and true statements, just come find me. It's good times. I think after this, I'd be like to be going and paneling it up somewhere else. So.
Okay. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. And in the interest of getting the people who need to go into another panel on the other panel, Lactoid.
Yep, thank you, Wick. For those of you who liked what I have to say, you can find me at Lactoid TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. Some people here maybe think I am far right. Some people have called me far right. I'm actually not far right, because if I was, I'd be on the DNC's payroll. I'm actually a libertarian, and if you would like to see libertarian content, please check me out. Thanks.
Go check him out, gang. Tyler.
Average Debate Enjoyer on Twitter and YouTube. I don't have anywhere to give me money. This is purely because I love politics and really like debate, want to get better at it. Come check me out. The actual intent of my channel is to like open source policy discussions. People bring me ideas and I throw mine at them and we debate over them and try to make them better, but nobody seems to bite on that so far. So I'm here doing debates for fun.
Well, thanks for being here. Really appreciate you. And if you want to give money to him, apparently you're going to give money to me instead because he doesn't have anywhere to give his money. Daxiums, what you got?
I don't really have any closing statements, but it sounds like no one really does either. So Axiom's everywhere, mostly on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, elsewhere. Thanks for having me, Wick.
No, thanks for being here, and we need to have you more often. I want to have you on one-on-one because I know you wanted to talk to me about the Israel-Palestine situation, and as from your perspective as a progressive Jewish voice, and I would love to have you on to talk about that, and we will arrange that. Josiah!
Hey, everybody. Okay, first things first, Gibbs. How dare you slander me as a Revan fan, you son of a bitch. The Revan is a self-insert Gary Stu with no personality whatsoever. Great video game mechanic, but a terrible character. You and I are completely agreed there. Terrible character. In terms of everything else, I love busting Lactoid's chops. It's always fun. He is on the DNC payroll. Don't let him fool you. He is voting for President Biden in the 2024 election, proudly so. You can find me at youtube.com/@ponderingpolitics if you like, admittedly, unapologetically partisan progressive commentary, ruthless Democrats wanting to stick it to Republicans because they're a bad faith authoritarian cult of personality that's going to doom the planet. youtube.com/@ponderingpolitics.
Check him out, gang. We're going to have him more often, especially as we get closer to the actual election.
Can you hear Wick?
I think he's muted.
Oh, what?
Yeah, Wick's muted. Oh,
Hello?
now you're not.
Hello?
Now we can
Hi.
hear you, Wick.
Oh,
now we can hear you.
Yeah. What I was saying. Check out Josiah, Pondering Politics. He's great. We're going to have him on more often as we get closer to the election. So thank you. And last, but certainly not least, our favorite cat, Vivian.
Hey, yeah, I'm Vivian Wolf on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. I mostly Twitter nowadays. Let's be honest. I'll post my Twitter in the chat. There you go. I think if Wick is gonna have some nut job from the ex-Reform Party, too extreme for the Reform Party, on tomorrow to talk to him, who's just been making anti-trans posts to like publish his to popularize his campaign for mayor of Greater Manchester. I think he should have me on to talk to him. I think that would provide some much needed context and knowledge of the situation.
I am interested, but talk to me after, and Devil will be in the details on that.
If you're gonna have an anti-trans far right dude on here,
I do have Socrates on there, and Socrates is a very good progressive one.
Right, but Socrates is a cis boy.
Fair. Okay.
And cis people are just inherently inferior to trans people.
Okay, fair enough. Anything else from anyone else before we let you go?
Thanks for having me.
Okay.
Oh wait,
Thanks,
one last thing. Sorry, I forgot because I meant to note it down for my closing statements. Somebody on this fucking panel, probably not the two people remaining, but chat informed me that somebody on this panel asked me to condemn the Nashville shooter. And apparently I didn't hear them. We were all talking at the same time at that point. I didn't respond to that. So, yeah, you fucking idiot. Obviously. Kind of fucked up that you would ask me to do that. But I just want to make it super clear at the end of the panel here, because other people were mentioning it in chat. Obviously, anybody who fucking like any act of mass shooting, murdering children, yes, obviously, I am against that and would not offer even an ounce of support towards such an action. And I find it fucking offensive that anybody would even think that I would.
I didn't hear this being asked.
Yeah, no, I didn't either. So. I'm just saying, like, chat was telling me that I got asked it and didn't respond. So
okay,
it's a fucked up question.
Now we have condemned it. All is condemned. We've condemned every bad thing in the world. We'll see you later. Writing out to Prime Kai. Make sure you spam those emails. Tell them it's a hate raid. We'll see you later. Bye.